Well, happy Saturday, Jeremy.
Happy Saturday, John. You know what my first thought was just this very moment?
What?
We got to change the graphics of all the Knicks that are shown on there.
What number is OG? Can he fit on there?
So you're saying we did a new number 9 and a new number 5 is what you're saying, Jeremy?
I'm saying that 9 to 5 is not in New York right now, and we'll have to figure that out.
You know what else we need to do is I need to open a window because someone needs to fly away north. Can crows cross the border? Do they need a passport, or how does that work?
I'll let you handle this, Jeremy.
I'm out. Okay. Let's talk about let's put crows aside, agendas, all those things. Let's talk about the trade, right? So, John, you were at SNY about to record a segment,
which had nothing to do
with how that happened.
Okay, so I want to start off by two things, and I'm going to throw it to you. The first thing, take a little, just briefly through my day. So we were literally, like we were mic'd up, me and obviously CP the franchise of Knicks Fan TV with Dex, and we were waiting for the go, and instead of the go, I hear Dex, who has a mic or has an earpiece in, say, "Oh, wait, we got some Knicks news." And so me and CP immediately grab our phones, and then you saw the reaction after that. And man, that is a moment that I will never forget. So that was the first thing I want to say. The second thing, and then I'll throw it to you. I want to open just by saying this. It will probably surprise nobody watching this and listening to this that I'm a big fan of this move. And I think I have a funny feeling that you're a big fan of this move too. And there are a lot of reasons why that I am a big fan of the move. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think you're a fan of the move as well. And we're going to get into all those, and they all matter. What I think I need to say up front is, and some people may not be interested in this, so fast forward, 2 minutes if you're listening to this on the pod. If you're stuck watching me live, nothing I can do. I've, over the last few years doing this shit, as a self-preservation technique, needed to find ways to extricate emotion out of what I do, because otherwise I can't sustain as a human person every day, living and dying in the way that I think I did as a fan for the vast majority of my life. And part of that is to, as best as I can, and I can't always do this, I certainly can't do it at the end of close games, but part of doing that is to disassociate any specific loyalty or emotion towards any players and look at this thing as what I think front office people look at it as, which is, essentially a version of a spreadsheet. And I've come to realize over the last year or two that disassociates me in a certain way from a lot of people who watch me. And I have had to ask myself at times, like, am I still the best person to do this? And I don't know, people will watch if they watch, and if they don't watch, they don't watch. So, like, I need to acknowledge that up front, because the way that I am reacting to this trade, and I'm not going to put your words in your mouth on this end. I'll let you speak for you. But the way that I am processing this trade has nothing to do with the fact that Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett, two homegrown players, the arguably signature two homegrown players of the last, since Ewing, other than Porzingis, right? Am I forgetting someone?
Homegrown.
Gallinari was here for 2.5 years, so not quite the same, and the team stunk. So, like, again, it's been 40 years, and it's these two and KP, and that's it. And they just went out the door in one trade. And the Venn diagram of people out there who are Knicks fans and haven't developed an emotional attachment to either Quickley or RJ is minuscule. And I want to acknowledge that, because how I'm coming at this is not from either of those places. And I just want to put that out there at the start, while also seeing the trade and seeing both of their names in the tweet that they're both going out. Even having said all that I just said, it knocked me back a little bit. I was like, whoa, that is a sea change. So I just had to get that out up front. I apologize. We'll get to the serious trade analysis now, but I just had to say that before anything else, and now I'll throw it to you.
Where to begin? My goodness. This trade, the timing shocked me. The
Absolutely.
trade did not.
No.
I can't. And this is why. And I was actually
Hold on.
very...
I don't want to. I have to ask. You said
Yes.
the trade did not. Once you learned all the details of the trade, still same answer? Shocked or not shocked?
When I saw that it was not a first-round pick and that it was the 31st pick, or it's currently the 31st pick in this draft, I was once again shocked.
Thank you.
And
I just wanted to get that out.
100%. I was expecting, I don't know about more, right? Because here's what I thought of. First and foremost, let me take a step back. The Knicks have always wanted OG Anunoby, and for good reason.
Yeah.
Because there are not a lot of wing stoppers who are excellent defenders, who match up well, and who hit threes and don't require a ton of usage.
No.
They needed size. That was a position that they have targeted for ages, right? It was why they went after Cam Reddish, and they thought maybe the shot comes around and they figure something out. Okay. It's why they went after Paul George this past summer and offering RJ Barrett. They went after Grant Williams because even though he's not quite like those other players, he still is able to guard up a bit and defend wings. And they wanted OG. And they've wanted OG. And I think that a lot of people look at OG Anunoby and see the lack of offensive production and write him off. And I understand. Look, maybe you love RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley, and you feel like that's not a worthwhile trade package. We'll get into that. That's fine. But what I was very prepared to do was when we were supposed to next record, which was not today, of course, but when we were supposed to do that, I wanted to highlight one main thing, which is when asked about why in that Thunder game, the Knicks played, or specifically Tom Thibodeau played RJ Barrett. John, what was Thibodeau's reaction? What did he say?
Oh, I mean, the matchups, the size. It's size.
When he said that, the very first thing that came to my mind was not like a shot, but just a general comment that also looped in the front office of, I don't have any other wings. I don't have the wings who will do it what I want them to do.
This is what you gave me.
This is what I've
you
got.
gave me.
Now,
Yeah.
mind you, it is still on Tibbs to find the right things to make the
Absolutely.
team go, which is why
Absolutely.
I would not have put RJ back into that game. I would have kept Emmanuel Quickley, and even with the size limitations that he has because of how IQ was progressing. But with all of this going on, there's certainly the thing that there are two things that bother me. Number one is I was building one hell of a cap or no cap that featured OG Anunoby that was ready to go on January 15th. It was growing, it was getting better and better.
Like the blob.
And it's now not useless because I can still repurpose it and with the trade. So it's fine. I'm okay with that. But here's the second thing. The second thing I'm annoyed about is I'm annoyed at myself. And I'm annoyed at myself for this very reason.
I can't wait to hear this.
When the deadline for rookie extensions occurred and Emmanuel Quickley did not have a contract.
Yeah.
We sat in front of a camera. I mentioned how I was really nervous about Emmanuel Quickley being traded this season because if you look at how the Knicks have operated in the past, they will deal with their stuff in-house or they'll say, we're not going to wait and let something get out of our control. We want as much control in the situation as possible. And then at a certain point, Quickley started playing better. And I told myself he's not going to get moved because number one, the Knicks need a backup point guard, which is still arguably true. But number two, because my heart wanted him to stay because I care a lot more about Emmanuel Quickley than I do about RJ Barrett. And I don't mean that as a slight to RJ. I just mean that as in, if we're going by personal preferences of players, for me, it was far more about Quickley than it was about RJ.
Well, it's because you have eyes. And you
Again,
use them to watch basketball.
Even still, let's separate that just for this moment, right? The main goal that people are probably losing in all of this, and I understand why they would, is the end goal. The end goal of this team is a contender. To get to contention status, you need a superstar. To get a superstar, you need to trade players and assets to get said player. All season and before and all that. When we would think about superstar players and how you acquire them, the prevailing thought was including RJ Barrett in that superstar trade because of the salary, because of the talent, because of the ceiling, all of these reasons. It gets harder and harder to feature him in those types of moves when play continues like this. When you see someone who is consistently against the grain of what the Knicks are looking for in a player, and how if it's not the right fit, it also impacts RJ's value. Putting RJ in the superstar trade package, it started to become much more difficult because of the play that was there. And it wasn't just a short period of time. Again, if you look back at much of his career, unfortunately, the inefficiency has remained consistent all throughout. And so the Knicks getting OG Anunoby today, it doesn't advance them any further in the ceiling of the team, but it raises their floor to the point where they keep getting higher and higher. And then when that superstar inevitably comes, because let's face it, this is what it's always been building up to. It's going to be, you know what? I'm really glad we got RJ. OG. Freudian slip. Really glad we got OG. Because without that, the Knicks would be sorely lacking. And we would be looking at a compressed timeline with a star, superstar, whatever you want to call him, and say, man, we traded RJ for a player that isn't a wing, and the Knicks desperately need wings, but there aren't too many avenues for them to do it because they use that salary in other ways. You have to keep building. And the Knicks have been doing that. Floor, bottom floor, basement, first floor, second floor. They keep going. They're not at the penthouse yet. They need time for that. But this at least builds another floor. But from a fan's perspective, I completely understand if you're hurt because of loving watching players, because this is still a sport and enjoyment and entertainment. I can understand if you felt like those players were going to take the Knicks somewhere that is further than they can take OG Anunoby. I get all of that. And it hurts still to see these players and assets go. And you think, hey, maybe the Knicks could have done draft picks instead of Emmanuel Quickley. But the thing that I always wondered about was how is it that the Knicks could, with this new CBA into effect and the second super tax being as extreme, tax apron being as extreme as it is, how are the Knicks supposed to trade RJ for a superstar and keep Randall and Brunson when their new contract's coming up? And bring on IQ, where we talked about this past summer how few teams actually employ multiple lead ball handlers earning over $16 million. It's just not something that happens, and it doesn't happen a lot for a reason. And it's not to say the Knicks couldn't have bucked that trend, but if you analyze just the way that teams build their teams, it didn't seem like it was going to feature another expensive ball handler, which is exactly what Quickley would have been. So we're at a transitional step, and I've got some ideas as to where they go next. I'm happy to share them as time goes on, but as of right now, this was a future. This is a move aimed towards the future, but in the present, it's not necessarily going to seem that way.
I want to make an analogy. It's not a perfect analogy because I just thought of it, but I want to make an analogy in regards to what you just said about trading quickly versus trading firsts. And I'm not going to sit here and wager a guess as to how many firsts or what the firsts would have been or the protections on the firsts that the Knicks would have needed to include if they did not include Emmanuel Quickley in this deal. The analogy is this: if you let's take it back to like pre-colonial America, where you had like trading posts, right? And there was no universal system of currency. And let's say you had some different sorts of coins or I don't know, beaver skins or whatever the hell people traded back then in your satchel. And you went to one place and they're like, we will only take the coin A that you have. And you went to the second place and they're like, well, we'll take either coin A or coin B. Well, if you need things from both places, you're going to go to the place that takes coin A or coin B, and you're going to give them coin B so you could save your coin A for the second post. Doing anything other than that would have been insane. The Knicks have Emmanuel Quickley. Emmanuel Quickley is let's politely call him a combo guard who could maybe be a little bit more than that.
He can run pick and roll.
He can absolutely run pick and roll.
The floater game has been fantastic.
100%.
He has truly grown to the point guard position.
100%. I do not believe that there is any universe where teams around the league presently view him as a top 2 player on a contending team. And I am specifically going with that lofty of a goal because we could love Immanuel Quickley till the cows come home. The reason why that distinction matters here is because unless you are a team with one of, I don't know how many of these guys exist in the league, 5, 6, maybe, jumbo lead initiators who can actually run your team. I'm not even talking about Jason Tatum here, who's like, you still kind of want a legit, like truly legit point guard alongside that guy. I'm talking about the Barneses and the Doncic's, and then maybe Cade grows into that role. Kawhi is like, he kind of got close to there a couple times, but even he was alongside Kyle Lowry. LeBron obviously fits his. That's the sort of guy that that needs to be next to Immanuel Quickley for the vision of Immanuel Quickley is a 35-minute-a-night player and can start for a team, and that team can win a championship. Because then you could have another traditional, whether it's a wing or a big alongside, and all of a sudden Quickley doesn't need to be your 1 or your 2. You could be your number 3 or your number 4. That's the ceiling. That's the vision for Immanuel Quickley's ceiling as that team, as that sort of player on that sort of team. That was never, ever, 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 ever going to happen here. So why, if you are the Knicks, would you include draft capital that you could include in any trade for any player, as opposed to Immanuel Quickley, who in this trade to this team, Toronto Raptors that already have Scotty Barnes, is going to value Quickley to the nth degree versus another team who might not value him to that same level. That is why it always made sense if you were going to go get this player, OG Anunoby, to include Immanuel Quickley in the deal. The reason why I never thought it was going to happen is because I'm like, okay, so then you're trading Quickley and let's say Fournier, and if you need to include, actually, you wouldn't need to include more salary. They would need to include more salary. Put that aside. Quickley and Fournier, that would have been the package. Well, then you're stuck with RJ. And now you have RG and an OG. That doesn't work. So then it's like, okay, well, RG and IQ have to both go out in the deal. Man, they're not giving up RJ and IQ and the draft comp that Masai Ujiri is going to need to trade OG Anunoby. And then we arrive at the final version of the deal. Because what's the draft comp? 1 second-round pick. Is it the best second-round pick that you could possibly have at this point in the season? Maybe in NBA history? Yes, because the Pistons are all but guaranteed to finish with the worst record in the league, and you're going to get the 31st pick in the draft. Great. It's a valuable asset. It is not future unprotected first-round picks, which and I want to note a couple of reports here, and Zach corrected himself a little bit on this, but not really, when he said the thing he said in the middle of last season about OG Anunoby is going to fetch a Donovan Mitchell type package. He didn't really ever walk it back, but like the fact that his gut instinct was to be like, this player will be traded for like 3 unprotected future first round picks. Again, was it maybe out of turn when he said that? Did he couch it a little bit afterwards? Sure. That dude talks to more than anybody in the league, more than anybody else. And the fact that was his gut reaction when the topic of trading Anunoby came up is notable, as is reports from Jake Fisher and Ian Begley, both of whom put it out there on today in their reporting that they talked to people not involved in this deal from other teams around the NBA that were some version of surprised that the Knicks did not have to include more draft compensation in this deal for this player, given what they gave up. That is the reality. Again, I am not putting down anybody's love for either of these players. The reality of the situation is what it is. And that is what makes this deal, if not a home run, something close. And the last piece of reporting I want to get to, and then I'm going to throw it back to you because I know I've been ranting for a while. Interesting that Jake Fisher also noted in his report that OG Anunoby made it clear, very clear, to anybody who thought about trading him and in terms of their chances of re-signing him this summer, that OG wanted the ball. He wanted a bigger role. What's the one team that he would maybe consider taking a step back from the ledge on that demand for? The New York Knicks. Now, for why OG Anunoby's reasons for taking a step back, who knows? Maybe it has to do with nothing more than money, and he knows he's getting the bag from Leon Rose this summer. Quite frankly, I don't care. The fact that this player who has made it known through back channels that he wants a bigger offensive role is, at least at this point, somewhat amenable to coming here and seeing how it works as like not a featured guy. I think that's a big deal, especially when you have Jalen Brunson and obviously Julius Randle on your team at this point. So, yeah, I'll throw it back to you. I have one more point before I want to get to the super chats. But anything else based on anything I just gave you?
Yeah, OG, obviously a fantastic player. been very high on him for a while. I know the Knicks have too, just based on what they like. He will get a higher usage, which is good. Which I don't mean he necessarily should. There are limitations to his his creation. His isolation game is very weak.
Yes.
He's a CAA repped player.
Oh, is
And
he?
I'm just saying, if there were an opportunity where CAA, and this is purely hypothetical, it's not good from anything I know of. But if the representation were to say, look, this is what we're looking for. We want our client to be in a very good spot. He's probably not going to stay here. That could kind of force things because a lot of folks looked at this lawsuit between the Knicks and the Raptors and immediately wrote off any sort of trades, or they looked at Masai's past experience and said, no, he's not only is he not going to trade OG, he'll hang on to him, but also he's going to get a haul for him. Or if he's not, he's going to want a haul and he'd rather risk him walking than not. And a good way to put pressure on that type of person, if it's not from the organizational standpoint, is from the agency standpoint to potentially say, look, you could risk losing him for nothing. We want this type of deal to happen. And then Masai gets to look like the good guy because Kawhi left, won a championship, don't get me wrong, but he wound up walking. Fred VanVleet walked for nothing. Kyle Lowry walked for nothing. Gasol, Danny Green left, but he didn't add a ton afterwards. Point being, the ROI was pretty lacking considering what the Raptors were not even 5 years ago. And it's fine. Again, they won their title. It was worth it for them.
Worth it.
But
never say sorry.
But it just, the assumption of Masai will never do this, or he'll hold out and he'd rather hurt himself than get anything back, to me always felt crazy. It felt unlikely. And I understand where the way that Masai operates, like every time he trades with the Knicks, he tries to go for the jugular. And the difference is the Knicks now have someone running the team who knows how to defend themselves from outside attack in Leon Rose and his organization. And the difference now here is, okay, yes, Masai, you don't have to trade him, but you still get a win. And we can get a win because not every trade has to be a win and a loss. You can win both sides of the trades. As long as it works for your side, it shouldn't matter necessarily how the other side works out. Look at the Kings and the Pacers. That trade is working out brilliantly for both of them. I'm happy for both those sides. You don't look at the other and be like, well, they're the losers. No, maybe one's winning a little bit less than the other, but they are both wins, and that's what matters. And in this case, the Knicks, they won something. Here, and this is the thing that stuck with me the most. If I had to look in a vacuum between OG and IQ, could I say to you right now that, like, Manuel Quickley, I would take him? Maybe, yeah. In a vacuum, I will take the young two-way guard who can be an initiator, be a creator, and still be able to do more with the ball. Granted, I look at OG and I think OG is one of the best at what he does in his archetype. Quickley is not among the best in what he does at his archetype, but it also shouldn't matter as much because the Knicks had a clear need at the archetype that OG is and not at the one IQ is. And so if they're always building to the point to what you're saying, John, of how it wasn't going to work out for IQ here, then there it is. There was no point of doing this later. There were two deadlines that we talked about this past offseason. Number one, the IQ deadline extension. That's one factor to consider. Number two, the trade deadline.
Yeah.
The Knicks knew they had to act before February 8th. They just had to. OG was never opting into his deal to facilitate the trade. And it was never going to work with OG, RJ, and Randall because those are three players who all play slower, more like fours, less like twos. RJ was not a two. It really didn't make sense to see him chasing guards around the perimeter. That was not his game. He was the type of player where when Grimes was there, you gave him the point of attack assignment. When Randall was there, you had him guarding the wings. Now you have someone in OG who can do all sorts of different things. If the team that they're facing has an elite wing, you put him on the elite wing. If the team they're facing has a much better lead guard, star point guard, put him on the star point guard. You can mix and match a little bit more than you could have before with RJ.
A couple things you hit on. One, and I'm going to throw a bone to anybody out there, and I have a feeling a couple of our colleagues here at Knicks Film School are among them that think the Knicks traded away the best player in this deal. Emmanuel Quickly is going to look awesome in
Mhm.
Toronto. He's going to look awesome alongside Scotty Barnes. Perfect fit for everything that they are trying to do, what they want to do. That is, and you know what? Here's the thing, though. He better, because he's the prize, right? And look, is this a bad trade for Masai? No, I don't think it's a bad trade for Masai. You are buying arguably RJ at his absolute lowest value, right? You're getting him, not to use an old term, but like he's a little bit more than matching salary in this deal, but Quickly's the prize, right? Quickly's what Masai wants. And hey, if RJ turns it around in Toronto and he finds the consistency that we've been screaming about for years, then all of a sudden the deal is a home run for you as Masai Ujiri. It also is a deal that is specific to the Raptors for all the reasons that I said before. For the Knicks, and I apologies if anybody watched the stuff that was put out with me and Dexter and CP earlier, because this is the point that I made there. I think it is, in addition to the fact that they didn't give up any first-round picks, the salient point for this trade. There is no universe, zero, where a core of Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle work unless you have this level of specifically defensive player and this sort of offensive player in terms of toggling between, it's mostly off-ball stuff. Could he do a little bit on the ball? You need that. They needed this. They always needed this. He is the skeleton key that unlocks the whole potential of this operation for this iteration of what they have. And how many of these guys out there are there? Like huge wings who can legitimately, if you get switched onto a 5, if they get put on a 1, can hold their own defensively on either side, and then can shoot the ball well enough on the outside, give you real size, the whole thing. There are not many out there, and those that are out there, you know what? They every time their name comes up in trade rumors, like a Mikal Bridges, we've heard Mikal Bridges, the Nets would turn down like 3 or 4 first-round picks for him. That's the sort of packages you're talking about with these guys, whether they're quote-unquote stars or not. That's the guy the Knicks always needed. So for as much as Toronto may be making out, I don't know if I'd say they're making out like bandits, but for as much as Toronto is making out very well in this deal because of what they got and how it fits, the Knicks are doing exactly the same. And then the last thing, and then turn it back to you when we get to Super Chats. I find it, I don't know if ironic is the right word, but fitting, perhaps fitting, that in acquiring one of the most versatile players in the league in terms of how you can deploy him and where you could deploy him. Guess what? Knicks solved their backup power forward issue because they got a guy that could absolutely slide. I mean, and I can't wait to see the lineups that Tibbs gets to use and stagger and figure out how to mix and match these guys together. And you better believe OG Anunoby is going to get his opportunities with on-ball creation when Randall's not on the floor.
Second quarter, beginning of second and fourth quarters is when that's prime OG time.
Boom. And look, it'll be a work in progress because, as you say, he's not a great isolation player. What can the Knicks do to facilitate what he does bring to the game? Very, very curious to see that. That's number one, or that's the on-court versatility. The reason I find it fitting or ironic or whatever word you want to use is because acquiring this player now gives the Knicks that much more flexibility in terms of how they continue to operate moving forward. I'm going to disagree with you on one thing, Jeremy.
What's that?
My pie-eyed optimism right now, I wonder if there isn't a non-superstar trade out there for them to make, and I don't really want to get into this today, that you could put a piece next to Brunson, OG Anunoby, and Randall. And,
I wasn't saying that would not be the case. Yeah. So no, to be clear, again, there's something I have in mind. And,
I'm sure there is.
We can talk about it.
Ian Bagley also reported they're not done yet. For anybody who missed that little nugget.
Gee, I wonder why.
So that's a possibility. Or alternatively, if there does become a superstar who should happen to find himself on the market, well, you just got yourself the sort of piece that any team in the NBA is going to be happy to acquire. If it, I don't think that's going to wind up happening, but if it turns into that, and guess what? If there's a scenario where you wind up trading Randall in the deal, again, do I think that that's going to happen? No, I don't think that's going to happen. If that should transpire, well, now all of a sudden OG slots in as your number 3. You have attained such flexibility by making this trade. And I'll say it again because it cannot be emphasized enough. you have all of your first round picks with which to truly bring that flexibility home and let it work for you moving forward, as opposed to this conundrum that they were in with Emmanuel Quickly, whereas he's too good to just obviously let walk, but his role on our team is not befitting of a role of a player where you're going to pay $25 million a year. And if we extend him for $25 million a year, how tradable is he going to be then? And what is his market going to be? How many teams are really going to want him at that price? You've eliminated all of that. It's done. It's gone. Miss him, love him, appreciate what he did for the franchise. This is about making your team better and able to be more versatile in what you do moving forward to do whatever the next step is.
Yeah, not just the first round picks, but the first round picks that will avoid any issues that would come of Stepien. Because the Stepien rule is what would trip everyone up, or at least the Knicks in this case, by laying out any first round picks of their own. And it's the thought process of if you
unless
feel
it was
like
this year.
But even then, because right now the Knicks could this summer still use at least a first round pick to supplement what they're doing. Because if we're looking at this right now, the players that the Knicks have drafted who are currently on the roster, Mitchell Robinson, who was not drafted by this front office, but that doesn't really matter in this very moment, Gwen Grimes, and Deuce McBride, and Jericho Sims. Those four, right? Don't believe I'm missing anyone.
Don't
now,
think so.
Did my Rokas Jokubaitis is coming over in 2024 agenda gain more steam? It did, because it felt like it was building to this. Because why wouldn't
dog
it?
You?
I'm just saying it made so much sense for why they would not bring him over. There was not a role. Guess what, John? There's going to be a role. Yeah. So, and I want to bring up two other pieces that came with OG Anunoby, because it wasn't just OG Anunoby. It was also Precious Achiuwa and Malachi Flynn, two free agents. I think it's relevant because I don't believe that the Knicks are sold on either of these players.
Wait, which two players? Sorry, I saw there was a piece of news, but go ahead.
Malachi Flynn and Precious Achiuwa.
Precious Achiuwa.
So here, just thought. I think in the interim, the Knicks have someone that they could feasibly run out, but I think they would trust Deuce McBride maybe a little bit more than Malachi Flynn based on where they're at in their careers and how Flynn has gone. Achiuwa, fantastic offensive rebounder, doesn't do a whole lot of what the Knicks like, though. I still feel like they will try to flip Achiuwa between now and the deadline, because I don't see them wanting to re-sign him, and I think they're going to look still towards, like, you call up Chicago, for example, and you say, hey, what if I told you that we could give you someone who's younger, similar to Andre Drummond, but better for you? And then that way you don't have to give up different capital. It's just kind of shuffling the decks.
Nuts.
Right. And then, of course, there's the elephant in the room right now of one Evan Fournier and his $18 million plus salary, and the fact that if you let it go, that's not good. It really hamstrings you. So that's where the continuous soup comes into play, where you take Evan Fournier's $18+ million contract and you add whatever you need to add to bring someone in that can help you make another decision, potentially as soon as this summer, that then elevates your team further. And you look back, and again, it's, man, I'm really glad the Knicks have OG Anunoby. Man, I'm really glad the Knicks have Josh Hart. Man, the Knicks are actually at a really good position, because in a league that is run by wings and where defense wins championships, it helps to have those types of players, John. It just kind of does.
I'm just very excited, not only for the move itself, but for all the reasons that you just nailed on. We laugh about I laugh at least about the Leon Rose, pulling the strings, right? With the Godfather reference. Man, the dude's kind of doing the thing, we're like, again, you may not love it, but this is what he brought here to do. This team was in fucking Nowheresville when he came aboard, and he's done some nice things to put them on the precipice. Now we could officially say they are on the precipice. Not there yet, but very close.
They're 16th in defense, by the way. 16th for a team that the backbone is the defensive side.
Yeah,
they had to do something.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I wonder if last night kind of, now it makes sense. I'm going to bring Andrew up here in a second. Do you think they learned about the trade before the game last night?
No, I don't, because
You don't? Okay.
seeing the reactions from Quickly, Josh Hart, and other
That's true.
tweets
That's true.
leads me to
You don't
believe
think
that
they got wind?
I think this came out of left field. I really do.
Because I watched that game and I watched the first quarter and how they came out and how they came out in the second quarter and how they came out in the third quarter, and like, man, what is with this freaking team?
But keep in mind, the Raptors, who have been struggling, who for whatever reason decided to get Jakob Poeltl and give up only top 6 protections on their pick, who
ridiculous.
lost to the Celtics, an elite team, who had just narrowly beaten the Pistons the previous night and still found a way to win against the Raptors. At a certain point, there had to be a final nail in the coffin for both of these teams as their seasons are going on to be like, you know what, we're at crossroads and we can help each other out.
Yeah.
And we just can't keep going in this direction, because it's a jumbled, bunched up faction of teams in that, top 9 of draft picks. And if you're the Raptors, you should have gotten a head start this past offseason. Masai Ujiri being late to the draw could actually seriously hurt this pick and them keeping it. But at a certain point, you have to come to a decision of, you know what? I should have done it earlier. We gave it a go.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. All right, let's begin. Let's start it. Because if we don't do it now, we're going to be in a worse spot. And if he leaves for nothing, then I might be out of a job. So they had to pick a direction. So this was just the natural crossroads for both these teams to be able to make something work.
All right, let's get Andrew up here real quick before we get to the super chats. Hey, Andrew.
Hey, guys.
What's up?
How are you?
You don't have to ask me how I am.
I think we all figured out how you're doing, John, especially those of us that follow you on social. I just want to add one thing on behalf of the IQ Hive, I guess. And I checked, my passport is still valid, John.
Just check.
I will just say this, and I said this when he didn't extend, that I can understand why the Knicks didn't, especially with what restricted free agency is. I completely hear every side of this, and I said this to Jeremy before you joined us, to Jeremy, for those behind the scenes. Jeremy and I logged on first, and we talked about the trade. In the hurry of me trying to set up the live stream, it was very much just it's IQ, it's RJ, it's picks. I didn't even know what the picks were. When I realized that there's no first round pick going out, it somewhat lightened the blow, because then you understand, like, the prize that the Raptors are getting back is Emmanuel Quickly.
Yeah.
I just want to say what I said when he didn't extend and we did that live stream. I understand it. I understand this trade. It's going to suck seeing him on another team. And that, I think, is the universal reaction of anybody that bought an IQ jersey, that bought an RJ jersey. Our perks for our Patreon folk, we just did an IQ perk. Spoiler alert, the perk for December was going to be an RJ perk. So now we got to work on a new graphic for our Ewing tier Patreons. I think in the most rational sense, a rational part of me, I think I have to just echo both of you. And I think the only thing I want to do is ask both of you a question I think a lot of people are asking because they didn't get first round picks. You can understand why the Knicks did this. I think the rational part of you is like, man, they got OG without having to give up a single pick. A single first round unprotected pick. Who knows what the Detroit first round pick ends up being? As far as who that next piece is, according to Ian Bagley, just initial reaction. Does this rule out who's the 2 guard that we're potentially targeting now? Because I think is what people are going to be focused on. And specifically,
Jeremy,
is there one in Cleveland that may be disgruntled, or does this kill that?
I'll let Jeremy answer first.
No, I don't think it's the player in Cleveland, for whatever it's worth.
So not Darius Garland. Got it.
No. My honest thought is I truly do believe that the next move, DeJounte Murray. And I'll tell you why. And I don't even think it makes a lot of sense, but I'll tell you why it actually does make sense. Michael Scotto of Hoops Hype talked about the Knicks being interested in DeJounte Murray. Ian Begley echoed the same sentiments. I believe both of them. I believe both of their sources. I think there is interest in the Knicks acquiring DeJounte Murray. I think a lot is being made of clutch in the Cold War that exists. I think it's silly that we're at this point, but so be it. We're at this point. Right now, if the Knicks were to make a trade this summer based on the roster they have, and a superstar became available, they cannot sign and trade OG Anunoby. It's not going to happen. The salary that they would have going out, Jalen Brunson, who is not being traded.
No.
Julius Randle, who I'm highly likely, who I believe 99% sure, not being traded because the Knicks like having 3 high usage, really talented players on the court. Ideally, that's what they envision. I don't see him going. And Evan Fournier, whose salary would be expiring once again, assuming that the player option would be, or the team option would be picked up to make the math work. So when the news broke of DeJounte Murray, there was so much emphasis on the fit from the basketball standpoint, which I don't like. I want to be clear about that.
Yeah,
I think adding someone who's a poor catch and shoot player who needs the ball in his hands, who maybe struggles in a lot of areas, especially for a Knicks team that likes having more off-ball talent and shrinks the floor by having Randall and Murray and Hartenstein together. I don't love that fit. But here's what I do love. DeJounte Murray's contract next season.
It's a great extension.
The sale to Philadelphia, to Cleveland, to whatever team. I doubt it's Phoenix for whatever it's worth, but let's put them at a very distant third. You say to these teams, we're going to take this player, Evan Fournier, and we'll add picks. Maybe it's Grimes. Maybe it's both. Maybe it's one or the other. I don't really know, but let's roll with it. You take that and you say to a team like Atlanta that's struggling, that needs to shake things up, hey, we got something for you. And you have this hodgepodge of a team that's not going to win a contender because it wasn't going to even before DeJounte Murray stepped in the door. And at that point, that's when you then say, all right, let's see how this goes and let's see what this summer brings, because there's a good chance that we could then turn DeJounte Murray into someone else. We could add other salary. And to me, again, I would imagine Embiid is the first target, especially when you look at the fact of Mitchell Robinson, DeJounte Murray. The math should work there. Boom. Maybe you could do it with Donovan Mitchell. In fact, you probably could, based on how close salaries are, just get some other math in there, and it could work out. And we'll see what the other moves are this season that might get us that way. But you need salary filler, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. In the same way I didn't really feel it towards RJ Barrett. You just need to make the math work. This isn't baseball. So in order to do that, DeJounte Murray goes from $18 million to like $25 million cap hit. That's how you can get from where we're at right now to star. Whether it's a superstar or it's a super duper star or it's a star, whatever you want to call it, I don't really know. But you need to. The one thing that I've loved talking about in the last couple of years is one red paperclip, where you go from something small and you trade it for something better and you trade it for something better until finally down the line. In the real life example, the person took a one red paperclip and turned it into a house. They bought a fucking house from getting a paperclip. That is where the Knicks are. Well, the aren't at the one red. They're not at the one red paperclip portion, right? They are at the portion where they're further along, but they're closer to the house than we might think. And getting DeJounte Murray gets them that much closer to the house. You don't have to like it in the interim, but you'll love it in the long term.
I agree. And I'll give it back to you, John, and then we can jump right into the super chats. I think, again, speaking from the emotional side of me, it was just a thrill to watch IQ come in on the second unit and be what he was. The 38 at the Boston Garden will always be something that we remember. I am curious to see what Toronto does with him, if he's now their new starting point guard or whether he also goes there and he's backing up Dennis Schroeder, which would be just criminally insane, but also high comedy. I have officially booked Esparahini, who covers the Raptors for SDPN up in Toronto. We're going to chat tomorrow morning for now what is it's a pregame pod, but it's like also a post-trade pod where we're previewing just the future for the Knicks and Raptors after this trade. And look, to the RJ Hive, I will just say he's going home. And we've talked about the numbers. He was having last year Kobe season when since the migraine. Like, that's how bad his numbers have been. and now he's going home. That is like a cool story. So like the perfect place for him to rebuild himself, find a new identity and a new home is quite literally in the team, for the team, and in the city that he grew up in. So there's a chance, like you said, Jeremy, that this could be just like a win-win for everybody. The Knicks get OG and don't have to give up picks. IQ goes to a place that he could start, and RJ gets to go to a place where he is quite literally royalty. And hopefully we do end up winning a lot in this trade. But if you are still emotionally invested in those players, they ended up in potentially really good landing spots too.
The way that Ian said what he said earlier today about, I don't think the Knicks are done yet. What do I always say? Ian does not say as much as he knows. He said about as much as he could possibly say without coming out and being like, this is not, I'm not talking about Donovan Mitchell this summer. I'm talking about something now, before this trade deadline. By default, you'd think it's Murray. I don't know, man. It's the most obvious fit because he's the most obvious like starting two guard, unless we're talking about, I mean, if they really want to keep their powder dry and they don't want to include, because here's the thing, again, I don't think they could get, like, I think Grimes is gone, by the way. I think Grimes is going out in whatever trade whatever this next trade is. I think Grimes is going out with Fournier's salary. So then it's about, all right, what does Grimes and Fournier get you with, like, let's say they want to try to trade away either their pick or the Dallas pick in the first round this year, plus two protected firsts. That's 3 firsts. None of them are very good, but it's 3 firsts, right?
Wait, say that one more time.
Either you could do the language, the better of I think you could still, even though the Dallas pick doesn't actually definitely convey this year, I'm pretty sure there's still a way you could do the language, the better of the Knicks pick or the Mavs pick in this first round. Like, well, yeah, you could do that because if the Dallas pick doesn't convey, then you're just getting the Knicks pick. So that plus 2 additional protected. So they have 3 additional protected in addition to the Dallas pick. Throw in 2, so that's 3 firsts. My guess is like that's what if that's the package for Murray, does that get you Murray?
So I've thought a lot about this because, again, and I'm now completely obliterating that cap or no cap in real time, which is fine. I'm over it. It's whatever. I'm fine. Cool. I'm reining it in. Great movie. But I'll say this. I looked at the DeJounte trade from the Spurs to the Hawks, and I looked at it through a fine-tooth comb. And that trade was Gallinari is expiring.
Yep.
The protected pick that the Knicks originally had for, what was it, the 19th, the 21st pick in the 2021 draft, they traded out of, included, which will convey as 2 seconds if it does not, if it's not out of the lottery this year, it will be in the lottery, or next year, it will probably still be in the lottery.
Yeah,
so it's 2 seconds. It's an unprotected 2025 Hawks pick, a pick swap that the Hawks are offering, and an unprotected 2027 first round pick. So I've looked at that, and I've been thinking about how the Knicks could match up with something with DeJounte Murray, and this is what I've got. The Hawks would be sending DeJounte Murray and probably someone like Wesley Matthews for the salary and for roster spots. Then you've got Evan Fournier. Evan Fournier, the vehicle to make the salary work, exactly like Danilo Gallinari. Expiring money, get off the books. You have Grimes. Grimes, to me, would be probably, if you had to offer him more, like, if Cam Reddish can go for that pick, protected first in 2 seconds, I think it's safe to be able to do the Wizards pick. But even if we threw that Wizards pick aside and decided to say it's not that value, which, again, don't necessarily agree, I would say that Grimes is akin to that Hornets pick. I also don't think DeJounte's value has increased at all since he was acquired. In fact, I think if you're the Hawks, you're prepared to take a small haircut, very small, but
haircut.
I'll finish.
The extension is nice. Yeah.
Sure, yes, but even still, so it's Fournier and Grimes, the Wizard, not the Wizards pick, excuse me, the Bucks pick. So the Bucks pick is important because we know that's going to convey. It'll probably be in the late 20s. But if you're the Hawks, congratulations, you now have a 2025 first round pick. You didn't have that because you traded out of it with DeJounte Murray. All right, and then the next thing, and the last part of it, is that the Knicks would be giving up the Pistons first round pick. The Pistons first round pick, the reason I say that is because That is likely to convey 26, maybe 2027. If it conveys in 2027, congratulations, Atlanta. You have found a way to plug up the gaps of your 2025 and 2027 first round picks. What's more, if you're Atlanta, really all you've lost on this is two second round picks and a pick swap, but you're going to be better than San Antonio in 2 years, most likely. So the whole transaction of going from before DeJounte Murray to after DeJounte Murray is essentially a loss of 2 second round picks in terms of value. That's the way that I've kind of been visualizing it. And it doesn't, the last thing, the reason I do not foresee the Knicks giving up a 2024 first round pick to Atlanta is Atlanta has its own first round pick, and Atlanta also owns the Sacramento Kings first round pick.
That's good call.
So the Hawks having 3 first round picks in this draft would give them a tremendous burden of how are we now going to get rid of this stuff? Where you can think of, oh, it's actually in the future, so you don't have to worry about it as much. And if you're wondering why is it that the Hawks would do this? Money.
Yeah.
Luxury tax.
That's what
the Hawks have been very frugal consistently. If you move DeJounte Murray this year for Evan Fournier and for Quentin Grimes, and you include Wesley Matthews, and again, the Knicks would throw in like $1 million in cash to make it all work. You walk into next season and you've pretty much shaved $21 million off of your payroll, which is important because the Hawks have Sadiq Bey, who they have to pay. They have their own first round pick, and then they have that Kings pick. Those 3, Bey and those 2 picks, assuming are kept, will cost them around $20 million.
And also Grimes, if they get him, they would have to pay him a little bit of money to keep him.
The following year, but not
the
next
following year. Yes, not yet next year.
Next year, they can be safely under. They build Quinn Snyder's team, which if you, I mean, you could plug and play Grimes into pretty much any team, but especially like think about what the Jazz did when Quinn Snyder was there. I'm sure a lot of the same principles. You put Grimes in that Royce O'Neal role, perfect for what they need. Perfect around Trey. Ideal. The Hawks, different front office, of course, but were interested in Grimes. Knicks said no. They went through with the deal otherwise. So if the deal ultimately goes, again, DeJounte and Wesley Matthews for Fournier, Grimes, the Bucks first, the Pistons first, and $1 million in cash, I wouldn't be shocked at all. And then you have all of your Stepien picks, all of your own unprotected, plus your Mavs pick this year to make one selection and then trade 3 to 4 unprotected picks if you wanted to. And you can trade the pick 7 years in the future because you're not a super tax team, because you're not paying Emmanuel Quickly $20 million in order to do it. There's so
45.
much going on. And if you think you're overwhelmed, you probably are, because it is overwhelming. It's a lot to take in. Trust me.
I should just say one thing. Let me go back behind the scenes. And I know you had a cap or no cap prepared and it got obliterated, but there's over 2,000 people, almost 2,100 people watching live right now.
Right.
They just got to watch you work live. And it's why, no disrespect to Bobby Marks or Keith Smith or any other capologist out there, anybody that works for a team that is a capologist, there's nobody in this business that does it better than Jeremy Cohen. That was incredible to watch you do live. It was literally like watching Matt Damon in why am I blanking on the 90s movie?
Please. That Good Will Hunting is totally different from anything.
Dude, it was like watching you do the math problem on the chalkboard. It was incredible watching you go through all of that.
If a much dumber version did it, then yes, that's exactly what it would look like.
Listen,
what does he say when he's in the
do you like apples, Jeremy?
I was going a different
big
way.
Apples? How about that big apple?
What does he say when he's in the guy's office? This is fucking easy for me. This is
this is easy for me.
All right. You want to get to it? All right, let's get to some super chats, and then I could stay on for a few of these. How about that? And then I may turn the baton over. JM, need the Benji tweet like I need air. I can't wait for it, man. I can't wait for it. It's gonna be
notifications on.
Yeah, you got that right.
What do we think it is, by the way? What you think it's gonna be? I just think it's gonna be what? Is it gonna be?
Yeah,
like,
it'll be something like that, and then
crap.
they'll follow it up with like something about IQ. I think.
Yeah,
I guess.
I got a nah what in there. Like he likes to say nah, N-A-H. Nah what, and that's what he's gonna say. That has to be what it is.
Kevin Danishevsky, get the world's tiniest violin out for Robert Cross. John, who do you think starts at the 2 now? I think they eventually go to Grimes, but I kind of like Hart for now. Oh, I don't like Hart. I like Hart as Hart has to. So this trade does put a lot of pressure on Hart in this sense. You depend on Quickly to come in and give you a jolt, right? Give you the bench jolt that all the best 6-man give you. Hart now needs to give you that every time. And I know he's a very different player than Manuel Quickly. Obviously, it goes without saying he's a very different player. You need that jolt off the bench. It depends on how long Grimes is here. I don't think they're gonna. I think they'll keep DiVincenzo. I think they'll keep DiVincenzo in for now. I think they'll keep DiVincenzo in for now.
Give OG more usage, more creation. Yeah, DiVincenzo is perfect in the role that he's in at this very moment, especially because the biggest concern was, well, who's going to be the point of attack? Who's going to be the wing guy? It was neither. I mean, DiVincenzo was really neither of those things. Now he doesn't have to be. Now he's in more of a natural fit for himself.
Yep, exactly. But I could, depending on a lot of factors, I could see it being Grimes eventually. Thanks, Kev. Appreciate you. Russ Guberman, what's going on, Russ? Leon is the Mafia Don. There you go. You read my mind here. When your friend goes, that's the horse head in the bed sheets. First Cam, then RJ. First Obi, then IQ. Happy New Year, KFS. He ain't take this job to make friends, or to that was the biggest reason why I always got a little, I don't know. I felt a little bad anytime somebody shared with me, genuinely bad. I don't mean this facetiously. Genuinely bad anytime somebody shared the sentiment of, finally, we have a GM that is building with homegrown talent. And I always, in the back of my mind, thought to myself, well, yeah, until came today. So, yeah.
One other thing I just thought of, our Julius Randle now has Jalen Brunson, Dante DiVincenzo, and OG Anunoby surrounding him. That is incredible three-point shooting. The gravity from that is fantastic. And one of the things that was often talked about was adding spacing around RJ.
Mm-hmm.
But RJ was hurting the spacing. It wasn't always just what can the Knicks do about RJ. At a certain point, it has to be, well, what can RJ do for the Knicks from a spacing issue? And when the Knicks are so predicated on having a 5 who gobbles up offensive rebounds and plays close to the rim, for now at least, it makes RJ's job very difficult because Randall was also not shooting super well from 3, especially on the catch and shoot, worse than RJ. But Randall at least brought so much more to the table that it was, these two could never truly coexist on a team moving forward. And I think the wildest thing for me is that earlier this month, I believe it was earlier this month, last time Mitch played, we saw this front court for over 4 seasons consistently, except for when Mitch got hurt in the We Here season. It's finally done. It's not going to, that's like the end of an era of the 3 most tenured Knicks, which just kind of dawned on me, which is wild, but this is where we're at.
And a couple things on the spacing. OG Anunoby he's a career 37.5% shooter from 3. This year's 38%. Last year was 39%. The most important part, and this is, my God, will this be a welcome sight? From the corners, 44, 45, 47. Those are the last 3 years, corner 3-point shooting for Anunoby on significant volume. That's the other part. And then just as the piece de la resistance, OG Anunoby at the rim this year, 73%. RJ Barrett has never had a 5-game stretch in his career where he's shot 73% at the rim. That's what OG Anunoby is doing on the season. Last year, 65. The year before that, 64. The year before that, 69. I mean, these are all dogs that are going to hunt. And I think you could very easily make the argument that the spacing on the Knicks that he's walking into is better than any spacing he's had on the Raptors the last few years. So I don't necessarily see any reason why that rim number should go down a terribly great deal.
His rebounding has also been low, OG's, which is concerning. But
it's one big weakness, yeah.
But I was talking about this with Prez, who brought up a great point. I think he was talking with Mo, where a big reason for the lack of rebounding could also be if he's defending the best guards and they're spaced out, that they don't move in. So the rebounding is not a priority for him because his focus is more suited elsewhere. So maybe that changes based on how they use him. I'm really not sure, but it'll be a fascinating development no matter what.
Agreed. Absolutely. All right. Next up, I-95 bully. what? Like, what can I do? Matt called it salary filler. How do you feel about the other pieces in the trade? It feels weird to say good trade by the Knicks. So I will just I'm gonna give myself a loss on this one. I don't think RJ was salary filler in this trade. I think because if he was truly salary filler, right, you could ask yourself, do the Raptors do this trade if it's just Emmanuel Quickly and Evan Fournier, which would have worked under the cap. Not you just take Flynn out of it. I think it probably works under the cap. You still get Achua in. Whatever you could, you'd be able to finagle it, right? I don't think the Raps are doing that trade. I think RJ, the prospect of him rebounding, and maybe figuring it out in Toronto and his home country, the whole thing. I think that was hashtag meaningful here. So I do not think that he was just salary filler, even though, like, in terms of like the prize that many have thought he was over the years. No, not that. I don't know. I'm maybe different from you a little bit on this, Jeremy. I'm kind of excited to see Achua. I think Achua's had a decent year. He had a bad year last year. I don't know that I want him shooting threes. He has dabbled this year. I don't know what his percentage is off the top of my head. I don't think it's that great. I'll look it up. But I'm curious to see Achua.
It's fine. I just don't foresee a long-term future here. I don't think that the Knicks are going to want to keep him around because, again, two options, right? I would imagine that they would very much like to retain Isaiah Hartenstein because of how important that he is. Completely. So then you work backwards from there. Well, not really backwards. You kind of just work all encompassing. The Knicks still have Mitchell Robinson under contract. They're going to try to get Joel Embiid if there's just even a whiff of him being available. You also have Jericho Sims under contract. I'm not saying, oh, well, Sims deserves to be there over Achua or whatever. It's more that it just feels to me that the best thing moving forward for the Knicks is to move Achua for someone like Drummond, who will be cheap moving forward. And I don't think Achua will be particularly expensive. It just feels like an unnecessary future expense because it essentially locks the Knicks in to having to pay a restricted free agent. And I think that if there were a way to do it, you wouldn't want to be paying 3 centers, right? If you're keeping Mitch, because I doubt you're trading Mitch to then get someone. I don't know.
They're not trading.
It just feels like it feels too galaxy brain to me to bring in Achua and to keep him here and then try to figure it out with Mitch and Hartenstein and Achua and all of that. And I think the easiest solution is just move Achua for a different piece that better suits what you need. And if Drummond walks in free agency, then okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
you have two backups.
Yeah, it's an easier sell. I just looked it up. He's 29% from 3 on the year. So not great. On 45 attempts. Not a ton of attempts. Thanks, 995. Sekou Burmis. My Knicks group chat is in shambles, mourning for IQ, but rationally, I think this makes the Knicks better. It's the consolidation trade we saw coming. It's the trade. It's been so painfully obvious that this was the trade they needed to make from the beginning of the summer. We talked about this before the freaking free agency opened.
Yep.
That this is because we knew they were getting DiVincenzo. Like once the writing was on the wall with DiVincenzo, it was like, all right, well, just when is it going to happen, and what are the primaries? I'm sure a lot of people are upset about Quickly. I totally get it. And he's really good. He's going to look great. Like you could argue the Knicks traded away a top 50 NBA player today. I mean that. I think Quickly has that ceiling. I'm not going to say that he's a top 50 NBA player right now. I don't believe that. Could he get there? Absolutely. And that's a big deal.
And one of the best players in the league this year. I don't know if he'll become an all-star. I don't know if he should be over some of the other players, but I've always appreciated his game, and it's just like been taken another level, obviously, is Derek White. And when you look at Emmanuel Quickly, to me, he felt like the Knicks version of Derek White, or at least could be that type of player. But instead, the Knicks needed to turn their version of Derek White into Toronto's version of OG Anunoby, which is now their version of OG Anunoby, because that is the most glaring need for them right now. And it's gone. As long as, these players stay healthy, on paper, they fit pretty much all of the criteria of guards, wings, and bigs. The question now is where they make the upgrade to truly raise not just their floor, but their ceiling.
And I don't I think there's absolutely a possibility we could look at this trade as the Knicks version of the Derek White trade, but not in the sense that you were
That's what I'm
first
saying.
talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sekou. Appreciate you. Juanon, John, I asked you last night what your consolidation trade would be. It happened. What would you do now? The one thing I know is that they're not done. The prophet says more to come. He's never wrong. Oh boy. Shout out to Robert Randolph and his family band and Friday Night Knicks. Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a little bit already. I said it already with the SNY thing I was on today with Dexter and CP. I really don't love the Murray fit, and Jeremy already said, even though he just went through that whole mastermind thing, Jeremy said he doesn't love it either. I just don't see Murray as a piece that you were going to say, okay, long term, we see this as the backcourt that's going to take us to a championship level. That's my opinion right now. I still think that's the most obvious trade on the board, although it would not shock me if there was another. There are other losing teams out there with players that can be traded. That's all I'll say.
But are there players that can be traded that also help the Knicks moving forward to get them that next player?
No.
That's what is really difficult to find.
No.
And that's why when I also saw the whole Murray news, one of my other thoughts was, what if the Knicks are trying to get Murray to then flip Murray to Toronto? And maybe that could have been the case, and they just settled on this. And the reason being that the Raptors historically have loved deflections per game. Murray has consistently ranked as among the best in the NBA in deflections per game. In fact, 2 years ago, I believe, he was number 1 overall in deflections per game. So that's why I thought, if it's not for the Knicks, maybe the Knicks know that they can't do a couple protected picks and Grimes and Fournier with the DeJounte package for OG. But perhaps if they got DeJounte with that package, they could then in turn get someone like OG using DeJounte. But I think it became too convoluted when you configure RJ, OG, Julius. It's tough to make that work.
To be clear, if they trade for DeJounte Murray tomorrow, there's not going to be anybody more excited than me. If it's the sort of package that Jeremy is talking about, and again, knowing this front office,
I would be happier. I would be happier. If the package I laid out was what it was, I'd be a little happier than you. Not a lot, but just you said no one would be happier than you. I would be the first happiest person.
We'd both be happy.
We'd both be ecstatic. I'd just be
mostly because they would not be giving up any distant future. And again, as long as they have all those picks, to me, my view is like it's fucking gravy. Like sure, you want to go get DeJounte Murray, see how he works next to Brunson for a whole year, and Anunoby and Randall, like whatever, give it a shot. But keep your main powder dry. Thanks, Juno. Drew P. How many firsts get McCall for Evan Fournier done? A trillion, because those two teams are never making a trade. I turned to CP when I was at the SNY studios earlier today, and when it hit me, like, oh, Mikal Bridges is the perfect player to slot now as the starting two, and I'm like, unfortunately,
I disagree for whatever it's worth.
You don't think he's the perfect player? Okay, we disagree there.
The reason why I disagree is it's okay. Well, OG is going to soak up a little bit more usage. Yes. Sure. Like in a nutshell, if you were to say, hey, you have Brunson, Mikal, Randall, those three guys, and then DiVincenzo and Mitch when healthy next year, right? That's a good team. That's fun. It's not going to win you a title. I'm sorry, Kevin Danishevsky. It's not going to do it. I like Mikal Bridges a lot. It's also pointless because the Nets and the Knicks, if they ever make a trade, it will be something like, hey, we'll trade you your second round pick that's 57th for cash considerations and the right to a player. Like, right? Maybe it'll be the Louis Labrye trade that the Knicks and the Pacers made way back when. It's not going to be anything seismic, and it's certainly not going to be, hey, let's trade our best player to our crosstown division rival. Even if it's not a rivalry, they're still rivals. So it's not going to happen. Mikal Bridges is not going to be here.
For what it's worth, I'd give up anything. Ben Kim Garvey, what's going on, Ben? This will go down as the IQ trade in the near future. There's a lot of people who agree with you. A lot of people who feel strongly about that you maybe just gave. Because who's the best player on both of these teams? Arguably, Scotty Barnes. Long term, who's the asset? Let me rephrase that. Who's the asset that? What?
Are you prepared to say that Scotty Barnes is a better player than Jalen Brunson?
No, which is why I was about to couch myself.
Gotcha.
If you gave 28 other teams the chance to take one player off of both of these rosters, I would guess that over 20 would take Barnes, if not over 25.
Over Brunson?
Yes. I think the vast majority of GMs, if you had to say pick one player on these two rosters you could import onto your roster right now, I think about 20 GMs, if not a little bit more, would take Barnes.
Scotty Barnes is having one hell of a season. He has been phenomenal. I know they're at very different points in their NBA careers. Jalen Brunson is on track to be an all-NBA player. I'm not saying Scotty Barnes can't or won't be that. I think he easily could be. It's just I get the cost control factor and all of that and the size and prototypical wings. I get it. I just see all NBA production and what Brunson means to this team while it's winning.
Yeah.
And we just haven't seen that with Barnes. It's why it's so difficult to compare. But
Brunson is as valuable to the Knicks as any player is to any team in the league. I would be.
You
want to talk about me being apoplectic the way a lot of people are apoplectic today about Quickly and RJ going out? If they ever traded Jalen Brunson, that would be me. He's the one player that I have developed a real attachment to because he's the best player I've ever seen play since Ewing. So, and no, I'm not forgetting about anybody, Andrew, on the Knicks. So the reason I bring that up is if Barnes is the guy that Toronto praised that he is, and he does have that ceiling, and they just got him his starting point guard for the next 5 to 10 years, well, then do I think that there's a possibility that it could go down as the IQ trade? Absolutely. That's not my concern. My concern is about the Knicks and the Knicks doing what's best for them. And this trade was in the best interest of the Knicks.
Why did I get mentioned?
Because you know why.
You've said that many a time that Brunson is the most important player since Ewing. And I've never pushed back.
You
doing a podcast over here. Yeah. Yes. Sorry. Thank you. Thank you, John. Before you get out of here, here is someone you need to respond to. He's got 3 of them.
Absolutely. Okay. And after this, I have to go have a, for anybody wondering why I'm leaving an emergency live stream about the most shocking trade the Knicks have made since at least Kristaps Porzingis. As many of you know, I had COVID for Christmas, and we postponed Christmas dinner to tonight that I am and my family are going to be late for because I'm doing this. So as to not be a divorced man by tomorrow morning and being able to enjoy the OG Anunoby experience, I got to get out of here and hand off the reins to Jeremy and Andrew. But before I do, I think we have some super chats from one Robert Cross. I don't like this trade for one simple reason. IQ. He was never given a chance to prove himself here. He will in Toronto. I agree he will get a chance to prove himself in Toronto. I will agree that he was never given the opportunity to prove himself here that his talent deserves. I will not agree that there was ever the right place, time, situation, et cetera, over the last 2 years. Over the last 2 years to prove himself, because guess what, Robert? Guess who led the league in minutes during the 21 games that he started last year? Emmanuel Quickly. Why do you think we all think the way we think about Quickly as we do? Because he got the opportunity here. So for you to say he never got a chance to prove himself, go talk about a coach that didn't run him out there for 38 point whatever minutes a game when Jalen Brunson was out. Because that's what this one did. There's nobody who loves Emmanuel Quickly more than Tibbs. This is a roster construction issue. Next super chat.
I think William Wesley probably is a bit more.
I'll
say that. I think what you said about the last 2 years is important because that coincides with Jalen Brunson coming to the Knicks. If we want to talk about the seasons before,
that's a different
Elfrid Payton, Alec Burks. I completely agree with you, Robert. I think you're dead on. 100%. Yes. It's the 2 year portion or like a year and change. That's the part where it's like they had Jalen Brunson. He's him. It's hard. You can work with them together, and the Knicks have, and they should have done more. They should have. But there's the Jalen Brunson of it all.
It is what it is. We'll miss IQ, who played with joy on the garden floor, and RJ, who carried himself with class in a Knicks jersey, irrespective of circumstances. Yeah, RJ's a classy guy. He's been media trained by his parents since he was 12 years old. He was media trained so well that he has convinced a large portion of a fan base to overlook the fact that he has been a poor basketball player for 4.5 years now, who has no discernible impact on winning by any metric. So yeah, I'd say his media training was pretty fucking good for him to have. Again, we're the smartest fan base in sports, right? I mean, must be. I don't know who's good on a mic. Barack Obama to be able to pull off that hat trick. And I will miss IQ too. He did play with joy, and that was a lot of fun. And then what's the last one from Robert? Is it fair and reasonable to say that this trade is a sign the front office believes in Julius Randle? If so, that's a thumbs down from me. As BKG,
Ben Kim Gervey, notable patron at KFS.
Ben likes to say, dude is built on a house of sand. I think their view of Julius Randle is the same as they've had for years, which is that this is the guy that we have inherited. We are going to continue to treat him as the asset he is and make the best use of the asset he is. At press time, the best use of that asset is to continue to employ him on the Knicks and not trade him for what he would fetch and make the best use of his talents. And oh, by the way, his talents might get him into the freaking All-Star game for the third time in 4 years. So with all due respect to anyone who has any issues about Julius Randle, I mean, my Lord, I'm not going to ask what more do you want from the guy, because I know the answer. You want him to hustle back on defense every time, and you want him to get every rotation and to not, complain to the refs and all those things. Well, beggars can't be choosers. This guy's been a monumentally important piece of this organization. And no, I don't think that this trade necessarily puts in pen Julius Randle is going to have a lifetime contract as a Knick. He may continue to be here. He may not. They will continue to roll with the punches. That is what this front office has done pretty damn well since they have taken over, is taking every opportunity as it comes. And on that note, Jeremy, anything else?
I will stand on the belief that I've had for a long time, which is that Julius Randle will continue to be this Knicks team's version of DeMar DeRozan. In which case, if there's a certain point where the Knicks need to pull the parachute, they will. But they're going to keep building with him because he's a really great basketball player. And to your point, John, could very easily be named to another All-Star game 3rd in 4 years. He's got the warts. IQ was great because he always, and RJ was like this too, always showed up to work, put things aside. You always felt like 110% with IQ on both ends of the floor. And you shift to Julius and it doesn't quite feel that way. But also, I think for Julius, incredibly hard worker, but it probably came more naturally to Julius because he's just that big, that strong, and that good. And I'm sure that IQ had to work even harder to get to this point because he doesn't have the frame. He doesn't have the talent, the raw talent, in the same way that Julius had. That you can't quite build that size. I can't be 6'8" if I tried. You can't either, John. It's very unfortunate.
I've tried.
I've done years of therapy to get through it, and I'm almost there, but we just can't do it. And I think that Julius being there, being that presence, look, man, if you go into next year and you found a way to get another star or superstar, again, whatever you want to call it, and you added that player to Julius and Brunson, and you got OG on the wing, you got one hell of a team. Isn't that what we watch this team night in, night out? Well, all the years that we suffered, it's to get something that's really good. That's what makes being good feel all the sweeter, all of the losses that we've had to deal with. So to have Julius still prop you up and to get you further to that point, that's okay by me. I'm happy with that.
Amen to that. On that note, I'm going to call Andrew up here to pass the baton. And thank you. Apologies again that I could not stay on for longer for this one. What a day. Truly, what a day. That's all I have to say.
Well, enjoy.
Merry Christmas, John.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
All right. Later, guys.
See ya. All right, sir. Shall we?
Hi, Jeremy. Do you have anything to say to Robert or from what just happened?
I'll say hi, Robert. I'll get to your DMs soon.
Later.
But,
anyway.
thank you for the super chat.
Ham DM, you read the first one.
Can't wait to hear your thoughts, John. Sorry, Hamdi, you're going to be disappointed. Definitely feeling mixed emotions. How can you not, as a fan? In a perfect world, you want your draft picks to be stars, but I think this is good. We'll miss IQ greatly. Yes. Think about also, and this isn't so much praising getting there, but I think credit where it's due. That miserable season, that was the 2019-20 season, getting Marcus Morris, getting him traded to the Clippers to get the picks that were then used to trade up to get quickly, who was then used in a trade to get OG, who will one day be flanking at least 2 and likely 3 stars at a certain point in time. That's a pretty good ROI. And think about what would have happened if the Knicks had not made that Marcus Morris trade. If they hadn't done the scouting to get quickly. Would it be better if they had Maxey? Probably, but they might not have Brunson. Again, they did something. They turned a small move into something that led to something larger. And that's great. And I'm with you, Hamdi. I'm really going to miss IQ. I rock his jersey. When I go to the Garden, it's either him or Brunson if I'm wearing a jersey that day. And I'm not ready to retire it, but I'm not going to. I'm going to keep wearing it because it's not like he left for reasons that he wanted to. He was traded.
The Knicks just tweeted this out. Yeah, I'll remove the comment. It's a big graphic that says, "Thank you, RJ." Well, thank you, RJ Barrett.
Mm-hmm.
This truly is like the end of a bit of an era. Like you pointed it out that this is the first time we're just ever going to see Julius Randle on the Knicks without RJ Barrett on the floor, which is pretty remarkable because they were both such healthy players too. That I actually want to go back and look. Have we ever? Oh no, we did last year when RJ cut his hand off. Like
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
When
that
Luka
did happen. When Luka went full Wolverine. Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Anyway, I'll make sure I get the one when Quickly gets his farewell later too. Also, Hamdi, can't wait to hear your thoughts, John. You heard John's thoughts.
Yeah.
But trust me, you did. He got them all out.
Yeah,
Next up,
and then some.
Michael Aaron. I say this as an RJ guy from day one. Anyone who thinks OJ isn't a better player for this roster is kidding themselves. Big win, though. I think IQ could end up as the best of all 3 of these players. So I share in the as a card carrying member, I think, of the IQ hive, and you know, I know what the impact metrics say, I know what the advanced metrics say, I know what he looked like anytime he came into a basketball game for the Knicks in his career. I believe he, for his Knicks career, was like plus 800 when he was on the court. I'd have to look it up, but what his on-off stats were officially. But I can't help but just look in a vacuum at what OG Anunoby does for this team now and what dominoes now get set up before wondering what IQ becomes. Like, it's not a 1-to-1, but in theory, and you know what, with the way the Suns are right now, you might actually be wondering if they made the right move. But like, they got Kevin Durant, clearly the better player at their point because they were going for championship expectations. What Mikal Bridges looked like when he left the Suns was like, oh, there was a better player than the way the Suns were using him. And I do wonder if IQ becomes the starter in Toronto. Like, if we do see like a 22-point a game player that was there the whole time and the Knicks didn't give him the opportunity to do so in the starting 5. I'm very fascinating what very fascinating what the Raptors do with IQ after this, Jeremy.
Well, you have to give to get. That's always the thing with these trades. And I saw one post on social media that took the points, rebounds, and assists per game of RJ Barrett, of Emmanuel Quickly, and OG Anunoby, and complained about what the Knicks did to give up to get a player who puts up this stat line. And I just walked away angry because it completely neuters the discussion on this. It ignores that defense exists whatsoever. And the Knicks just acquired one of the best defenders in the NBA, which is exactly what they need. And not just a defender, but a defender who does exactly what they have searched for years. They have not had a player of this ilk since I don't know when. It sets us backwards, and it's frustrating to do that. But also think back. You're great with memories, and I'll be able to piece together the best of my ability. But let's talk through the last handful of champions in the NBA. Okay, so 2023, Denver Nuggets. Aaron Gordon turned out to be that big wing, fantastic defender. The Nuggets, mind you, acquired him for Gary Harris, who's good in his own right, RJ Hampton, who did not turn out to be very much, and a 2025 first round pick, which will probably be in the late 20s. Okay. The year before that, the Warriors. The Warriors had Andrew Wiggins. I mean, you could consider Draymond Green, but I think Wiggins is really more big wing, defensive minded. His shooting is in the gutter right now, but he was fantastic for what they needed. That was part of the D'Lo trade where they actually did better off, but that's what they got. Year before that, the Bucks. It was not Giannis. It was Chris Middleton. Chris Middleton was really that wing defender. Giannis takes on the offensive roles and more. He doesn't necessarily engaged quite in the two-way superstar way that we think. Chris Middleton was acquired for, I think, a second round, or he was a former second round pick and a throw in and from the Pistons and all that. Important piece. The Lakers had obviously LeBron, but even when it wasn't LeBron, Danny Green was able to be there. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who also was with the Nuggets, huge role in terms of defending wings and being a fantastic player off the ball. The year before that, you got the Raptors. OG Anunoby didn't play a minute in the playoffs. Instead, it was Danny Green. It was Kawhi Leonard. It wasn't even Siakam necessarily, but sometimes it was actually. But they had three guys that could throw out wings and do all that. You keep going year by year, and if you want to throw Draymond into the mix then with the Warriors, and if you want to have the Cavs in there with LeBron being that guy again, like, the point is, this is a key player, a key archetype that you so desperately need if you want to truly win a title. And that's what the Knicks are in this for. They want to win a title. And having someone like OG, again, it's going to be, I'm really glad we have this guy. And you're not probably going to realize it, or maybe you will, but most might not realize how important that person is until they're there, in the same way it was with the Josh Hart, but better. Like Josh Hart trade, it was, wow, I'm really glad the Knicks have Josh Hart right now. Damn. Hopefully I'm really glad the Knicks have OG Anunoby and Josh Hart right now as they flank their superstars and stars.
You think that's their new closing death lineup that they go to? And maybe DiVincenzo can play, but like I am curious what Tibbs does now at crunch time, because IQ was, I mean, we've been talking about the numbers for over a month now. Like the 4-man combo, the IQ, Josh Hart, Brunson, Randall plus a center has just been blitzkrieging teams for a while. And I just wonder if you just slot in OG for IQ, or do you put another shooter on the floor, whether it be Quentin Grimes or Dante DiVincenzo?
I think the beauty of it is you can mix and match depending on how it's going. But I would recommend starting with Brunson, Anunoby, Hart, Randall, and Hart to close. And then if it's not working, maybe you switch Hart out for DDV, but I don't think I'd put DiVincenzo in that. I think what the Knicks do, it's like the starters start and then they don't necessarily finish their games. I think that's kind of how I'd go about it with those guys. But I'd probably, that's an interesting question. I think I'd sub out Anunoby earlier. And I'm curious what like Benji and DJ and others have to say. But if you sub OG out first and keep Randall in the game through the end of the first quarter, then you could have OG starting the second quarter and get some of that usage and the creation that we talked about there, and then sub him out. It'll be interesting to see how they do it, but that's maybe my first instinct.
What's going to be crazy is when Malachi Flynn becomes the closing two guard with the Knicks during the stretch. And then one more graphic, I should say. Emmanuel Quickley. Thank you, Emmanuel Quickley, is what the Knicks just tweeted out with a nice graphic. Look, I'm going to just flat out miss it. I understand you have to give in order to get, but I believed in IQ. I still believe in IQ, and I think Toronto got a good one. You know, we'll see what happens as the years go by, but I think Emmanuel Quickley is going to look great with more than 24 minutes in a Raptor uniform. You're up.
Ryan Nelson. The singing, I'm not going to sing, but this is the best day of my life. Watching Barf J has been the single most grueling exercise for my fandom since Isley at point guard. I think the main point here is it's not just the RJ portion of it, right? Because it's something that also gets lost. You can remove something, but it's not just the removal. It could also be what's left there and the impact it might have. And I'm very curious to see what this Knicks team looks like, not just removing RJ, but the team itself, right? It's not as easy. Well, the Knicks on off, and that's what it looks like better with RJ versus not. But also it impacts and improves, at least on paper, the team as a whole. And I'm just very curious as to what that will look like, especially when you add in a player who's better suited for what this team's looking for in OG Anunoby.
We can talk about RJ. Ryan, thank you for the contribution. I genuinely do appreciate it. We could talk about basketball players without like screwing up their name. Just throwing it out there. That's all. Thank you, Ryan. Hope you have a good happy new year. D-Bro, has Deuce shown enough to really be the backup point guard?
No.
Do you think it's him or Malachi Flynn that are the backup point guard of this team?
I think for this very moment, you get by with more Deuce than Malachi, but Malachi's more of a point guard, I want to say. I mean, Deuce, again, most of the time it's off ball. It's not running point.
Yeah.
So I just don't. The Knicks just need to stay as healthy as possible before the next move, because if they don't, it's a bit of a problem.
I mean, look, it's something to see as the next days and honestly weeks and months play out, D-Bro. Next up.
JM, thank you for the super chat contribution. Any concerns about aggregating salaries for next move now? Murray not making a lot, but Mitchell or anyone on a max, and I can't find enough salary without moving Hart or DDV. 100%. There was a time where, this was December 16th, where the Knicks could have acquired someone using an exception and then attached that money, aggregating it with a salary to get something else. And the way I've looked at the Knicks has been a process of elimination. Whether it should be that way or not is up for debate. This is where I see it. Julius Randle, unlikely to go anywhere. Jalen Brunson, not going anywhere. Evan Fournier, probably going somewhere. OG Anunoby, not going anywhere. Mitchell Robinson, not going anywhere this season. Josh Hart, not going anywhere. He can't. He's got a trade restriction. Dante DiVincenzo, not going to go anywhere. You can't aggregate Achua or Flynn to Fournier. You can aggregate Grimes, and then the other guys are all making scratch. So I appreciate what Jay is saying here, because anyone who's thinking, oh, Donovan Mitchell, like that's the move. It's like it would really hurt the Knicks in other ways to be able to make this work. So by doing that, that's why, again, I'm still gung-ho on Murray. And I'm going to actually, after this, as I'm working through with the next cap or no cap, whenever that is, it's really thinking through, okay, the salaries of players and like what fits the criteria of exactly what the Knicks are looking for, because you need non-expiring free agents if you want to turn around and make a superstar trade or a star trade this summer. So you got to look for guys who are under contract. And there aren't a lot of players who are earning around what you can make with Evan Fournier, who are under contract next year, who can serve as a vessel to get you that next guy.
Next up, TJ2K, rocking my RJ jersey. He says Row, but I'm guessing that's now. Or maybe that's Row is short for Rowan. A lot of good memories. And then 3 broken heart emojis. Yeah, like this is why sports is awesome. We get attached to these players and, you know, their future and their investment and their performance for our teams. And it sucks when they're no longer part of your team. The example I used when IQ didn't extend over a couple months ago was like, as a Mets fan, as I always bring up baseball, like when Jacob deGrom signed with the Texas Rangers, I was like, you know, that's a gigantic contract that the Mets are probably better off not paying. It's going to suck the first time he has like 13 strikeouts in a performance with the Rangers. And then Jacob deGrom got hurt 6 games into his career with the Rangers, and that contract looks a bit shaky. I still hated the 6 games that he played for the Rangers, and it's like the Mets did anything with it. The first time RJ has 30 points for the Raptors, and like I wish I had time to do this with John here, but like to say he doesn't have an impact on winning just completely ignores the playoffs. And like that will be the memories that I take from RJ Barrett. Him going off in game 3 when they won, him going off in game 4 when they won. He was a gigantic contributor to them winning a series this most recent postseason. So I can't completely say that he never contributed to winning, it had gotten really bad this year, which is why I think we're at a place now where I'm okay, obviously, letting him go. But I respect you, TJ2K, that I feel for you and I empathize that like your favorite player most likely got traded today.
So, I'll start off. I completely agree. RJ was a huge part of also one of my favorite moments, which was the Celtics game. Like that buzzer beater.
Oh, yeah, the buzzer
was-
beater. Yeah.
That's one of my favorite KFS moments. That's one of my favorite moments as a Knick fan. All these great things that RJ was a part of. The playoffs, I mean, that's probably the peak of where I've been as a Knicks fan, which I mean, there are 2 seasons where they've won 6 games in the playoffs in the last 20 plus years, where I really remember them too. It was this and it was the Melo years. And the Melo years, it felt like with, I'm not going to say the center's name to trigger people, but like that was jarring. And it was the feeling of, oh, well, the Knicks will be back there. And they weren't until this point where it feels different because they're truly building not at their peak. And then the rest of the team kind of crumbles. And I really appreciate that RJ was able to contribute that level of basketball and add to the fandom for an enjoyment for because that's why we watch. We watch to see this team do well. And it's tough. And I think back to this summer where he did play well and there were still some cracks in the armor. It didn't feel quite like he was back, or he was there and taking that leap, but there were improvements. There were meaningful improvements with how he was passing on drives. You just wanted to see more of that, and it didn't really happen. So, I think I'm very curious as well moving forward. And this is the other benefit of CAA, which is not an agency that represented RJ, and it's not one that represents Randall, but like, is there a way that they can help make this work? Because we know where Leon Rose's ties are. We know all of these things about inline and everything. And Mensa mentioned in our group chat.
I was literally about to read it. If you want me to read it.
Thank you, Mensa. Yeah, go for it.
So shout out to Mensa, who I'm sure feels almost identical to what TJ2K is saying about losing RJ Barrett today. Jake Fisher is reporting that OG Anunoby is open to giving a discount to the Knicks. And from his most recent report for Yahoo, what's next for New York? The Knicks didn't land OG Anunoby without an understanding of his own financial considerations. OG Anunoby held meetings with several agencies this past offseason when he decided to leave Clutch Sports, telling potential representation he was interested in a larger offensive role that would be commensurate, with a salary figure in the ballpark of $40 million in average annual value, league sources tell Yahoo. However, Anunoby did leave those potential agents with the impression he would be willing to accept a smaller figure if he were to have landed in New York, sources said. And it's relevant to note the Indiana product did ultimately sign with CAA, which has deep connections with New York leadership. So, a man that, look, we all thought it when the move happened this summer. When he went to CAA, we all connected, oh, Knicks. And now it looks like he might even take a discount in his extension. Is that how you are perceiving this as well?
That's how I see it. It's you work together as a unit, and it certainly helps when you have a whole bunch of players and 2 of the targets. Sorry, let me back that up. All 3 of the targets that we have talked about for, hey, what are players that could at the very least raise your floor super high up and probably your ceilings too? In no particular order, Joel Embiid, Donovan Mitchell, Devin Booker. Where are they all repped, Andrew?
All CAA. All former Leon Rose clients too, which is the crazier part. I forget who I saw tweeted this out on the timeline when we were getting ready, but like the Knicks are going to want to extend OG Anunoby. They'll have to work with his agent. And who's his agent at the moment? Sam Rose, Leon Rose's son, and Jalen Brunson's agent as well.
And here's the other thing. We'll see if this is the right way, but something just tells me, and it's hard for me to count other people's money. I think that we're going to see over the next few years, really the next, let's call it year and a half, every player buying in that needs to buy in. And we've already started to see it. And here's why. Jalen Brunson signed a huge contract at the time for a player who'd never been named to an all-star team. We knew when we were recording it that was actually going to be a totally fine deal and very happy with it. And it turns out it's one of the best contracts in the NBA. So that's fine. Okay. You then move on to this past summer. Dante DiVincenzo took less than the full mid-level exception to sign. How did that become available? Well, yes, the Knicks moved Obi Toppin, but also Josh Hart opted into his player option. He took that player option and extended off of that at a lower amount. He did the Knicks a solid, and DiVincenzo came in, did the Knicks a slight solid by taking a little bit less than he probably could have gotten. You then get the possibility of, oh, okay, well, what if OG were to take less money to make things work with the math? What if Randall takes a max extension, which is not a max contract when he would be a free agent? What if Brunson extends off of his final year and all these players come together and say, we want a title, we want to contend. This gives us the chance to do it because of what this new CBA does to super teams. And if all these guys are buying in, what more could you want? What more could you ask for with a bunch of players who just want to do nothing but win a title and are willing to eat millions and millions of dollars in order to make that opportunity come to fruition? So that's my hope / prediction moving forward.
It's my hope and not prediction, but hope that your prediction is right as well, Jeremy. Ja's so focused. Sad to see. You were supposed to read this one. I'll just read it. Ja's so focused. Sad to see RJ and IQ go, but the Knicks acquired a player that 25 to 28 other teams can incorporate and use in their starting lineup. Fits like a glove here. 100%, Ja. The whole sentiment. The sad to see IQ go, and I know there's some people that are sad to see RJ go too. But this was a guy. That's why I'm so stunned that this is what the deal was. That again, I was expecting to see a pick or two that was higher than the 31st pick in the draft this year, and the fact that it was 2 rotation players, one of which is probably his lowest value so far. I can't really complain with what the deal is. I understand it completely.
Yeah. I'll also walk something back. John and I talked about why now, and we thought it was the 2 losses, and maybe that's the case, but also as Bobby Marks tweeted, and I missed this just in the rush of everything going on, and just wasn't able to focus on it. Starting on New Year's Eve, Anunoby is eligible to extend for 2 years and $40 million. So Kristaps Porzingis did exactly that, in that he extended for a 2-year deal shortly after. And so the philosophy there is, okay, great. Well, less money and stick around and let's assemble something together. But I agree, Ja. He fits like a glove. He'll be here for a bit. Dom the Dentist, thank you very much. The unsaid in this is what we re-sign him for. Anything above $30 million would kill most of my excitement about this trade, barring unprecedented productivity. Yeah, well, we'll see what that is. But I'll tell you, even if he signs for around $30 million, it would certainly be $20 million less than the combination of RJ and IQ. And I know a lot of fans would be like, well, I'd happily pay for that. And that's totally valid. But yes, locking in OG to a team-friendly deal would probably take this from even your most like upset friend who's a fan going like, I hate this, to like, I hate it, but I get it, to I hate it, but I get it. And also that's a really good extension number if it plays out that way. So I really do get it. Looking at you, XJ. Feel better.
You read this one too.
Drazov. IQ is about to go on a tear now that he'll be starting. I'm going to miss that dude big time, man. Hashtag NBA all vibes first team. Yeah, he just played with joy. It was infectious to watch him. He was my second favorite Knick behind Brunson. I now have to search for a new second favorite Knick, and that's okay because the Knicks got better today in terms of what they need to build that team, but it'll hurt to see him go, and I really can't. I'm happy for Toronto, a division rival. I'm not going to love that. But the good news is that even the Knicks fan who watches all 82 and doesn't really watch a lot of other games gets to see Emmanuel Quickly 4 times a year. It's not 82, but it's better than 2 times.
Next up, Frank Sound. I want that Deuce, Quentin Grimes, OG, and Mitch Tibbs masterclass. My goodness. And Josh Hart. And then there's your 4.
Okay.
They're gonna score 6 points in a quarter, but they might allow 5, which is good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Jasso focused. We'll do 2 and 2. Boston buzzer beater, skipping through the Garden.
TD Garden, to be clear.
Exactly.
I don't remember him skipping through the Garden as much.
So Jasso focus, I think, is I'm gonna translate this and hopefully spin it so that you didn't call Boston Garden the Garden.
Exactly.
When RJ hit the 3, Quickly was in the backcourt and started skipping himself. So I'm gonna say that you're referring to that moment, the RJ buzzer beater, plus Quickly skipping in the Garden that same moment. If you're referring to Quickly getting 38 in overtime against the Celtics, that was in Toronto Dominion Bank Financial Arena. Okay, that was not the Garden. Anyway, you're up.
Robert Cross. It is fair and reasonable for fans to have different opinions on players and it not be a hive mentality. Most of us want to win, period. No pushback whatsoever. I agree. That's totally fine. I think, again, this is, as Andrew always says, this is fandom, fanatics. Like, we can be tribal. We can do whatever we want in terms of these fans. I think so much of wanting to manifest it and hope for the best, we also have this innate need to be right. Each and every one of us. How much we care about how right we are is a totally different thing. And this is not directed at Robert, Hives, anything, just in general. Because much of social media has turned into agendas, and it can be difficult to sort through that. You can have agendas. You can have fun with it. If you love a player and that's what gives you joy, go forth and do it. Just to me, and this is more basketball than anything. Like, comes to baseball, I'm just like, screw it. Spend money, Hal. I don't care. It's not my money. And basketball's like, well, let's be a little bit more reasonable about this. And I recognize not everyone's going to see it that same way. And that's totally fine. And I want people to enjoy their fandom in the way they can. And I appreciate everyone who comes to our podcast who looks for similar to discussion that I like to have, that Andrew likes to have, or just something that's different than what they're used to and wants a change of pace. That's all fantastic. I also don't fault people for loving players and seeking comfort in watching them go.
Yeah.
No issue whatsoever. G-Bo. Folks better not hate on OG when he has bad games. Probably will. I mean, that's fine.
Guess what's going to happen,
it's
Jeremy?
It's going to happen. Like, I'll tell you, though, like, I see a lot of tweets about Obi when he has good games. I don't see tweets about Obi when he has bad games. I'm going to see tweets about Emmanuel Quickly and RJ Barrett when they have good games. I'm probably not going to see many when they have bad games. I'll see some tweets about OG having good games, and I'll definitely see some tweets about OG having bad games. It's just the way it is. That's how people are wired, and that's okay.
Anthony, thank you for the contribution. Gonna miss IQ, but it was the deal that was needed. This sentiment continues to be, I think, the general emotion today from a lot of people that gonna miss IQ and potentially RJ, but I think when the IQ extension didn't happen, I was like, you know what? At least I hope when they trade him, it's for somebody that I think they could use. And oh boy, can they use OG Anunoby. And I very excited to see what he does in a Knicks uniform.
But I want to compliment, especially the people I'm seeing here. And again, the fan base is very varied. It's always going to be. It's not homogenous. But like, people have taken this really well, truly, and I appreciate that because it's nice to see a similar vision. Because Andrew, how many of these live streams do we do? And it's often us trying to talk people off of ledges. It's nice to have a situation where pretty much all of the super chats we have are like, yeah, this sucks, but I get it. So thank you. Thank you, people. I appreciate
that. Drazov, again, but with IQ and RJ gone, does this mean we could see an OG extension plus re-sign iHeart move now that money has been freed up? What do you think about the Isaiah Hartenstein part of all this?
Can't extend him at all. The Knicks can offer him 175%.
Well, he's saying re-sign. He's saying re-sign. So
fair. Sorry, apologies. Yes. Yes, 100%. I think that certainly helps. I mean, I'm looking at the numbers now for next year, and the Knicks have significant tax space, and that's not including any move that they would make with Evan Fournier, but it also includes Isaiah Hartenstein's cap hold on the books. His cap hold is not going to be that different than the amount of money he's eligible to make at most. So I think they're in a really good spot. They're in a better spot now financially than they were a few hours ago because there's more certainty, and likely even more so if OG signs an extension.
This is for you, directed at you. So go ahead.
Yeah. Robert Cross, Captain Kickball. I will forever dislike you for your trade propaganda of IQ. That being said, Gerson Rosas should hire you anyway. Yeah, listen, I can't go on a tangent about agendas and hives and then be like, well, for this. So all I'm going to say is, Robert, I know you're hurting today, so I'm sorry you're hurting.
Same, Robert. Absolute same. Go ahead.
Greg Film Stuff. Thank you for the Super Chat contribution. As an RJ fan who is growing impatient with this inconsistent play on both ends, you upgrade with OG and you finally add legit wings. Love Precious in this deal as well. It's Flynn who can score. Good deal. We will miss IQ tremendously. Well said.
Cosign. Anthony Sixto, love the mood. Love the move. Feels like it opens up a lot more paths forward. Both IQ and RJ deserve a salute from all the fans for being a key part of pulling this franchise out of the mud. That sentiment and that might just be like the 2-sentence overall breakdown or summary of how I think generally I feel, Jeremy feels, and the majority of our fans at least feel today. Drazov again. Mitch, also signature homegrown player with RJ and IQ. Yeah, it's going to look weird if next year Mitch is somehow gone and also Grimes is gone. And it's like, so Julius Randle's the longest tenured Knick now.
I'll be honest. I'm at the point now where I feel like it's not going to be an if.
So it's a when. Yeah.
That's just how I feel.
Yeah. I'll let you read
RJ
this.
team. This trade doesn't happen if Mitch doesn't get injured, or will it? I love the deal, by the way. Hashtag OG team now. I think it does. I think that this, if anything, the Knicks would go into this being like, okay, yeah, we've got a pretty ferocious defense between OG and Mitch. And also DiVincenzo can add something there. And you surround Randle and Brunson with 2 elite defenders, based on how Mitch was playing this year, certainly. And a really strong one. Plus Hart. Plus Grimes, who still exists for now on this team. So I mean, I think this would have happened no matter what. This just has felt so necessary. And the final thing for me was when OG moved from clutch to CAA. This was like, okay, yeah, they're scheming. They found a way to scheme. Excellent. And keep in mind for OG, I mean, yes, he was part of that Raptors team, but like I said, he did not play in the playoffs. So he won a ring, but he didn't get the opportunity to showcase how good he could be. And he's certainly grown since then as a player. But yeah, I think this happens no matter what. It's just unfortunate that Mitch is hurt. It truly is.
I just want to commend RJ team. That's literally his display name, who said hashtag OG team. Now that is growth, my friends. That is rational growth. So shout out to you, OG team. Well, that's what I'm going to call you from now on if you don't change your name. OG team. You're up.
Stanley Fritz, Friday, first time, long time. I think quickly takes a leap in Toronto, but I'm over the moon for us. Yeah, he finally gets the opportunity to spread his wings and be good for them. And I will expect them to take a sabbatical once again this year, trying to be bad, which will be hard because Emmanuel Quickley is a very good basketball player who will certainly be energized and have opportunities to succeed. But they'll trade Siakam, I gather. They'll probably try to get something for Gary Trent Jr., what little that might be, but still something. And then keep their pick this year and then go into next year and say, let's just be a really good young team that can play well with Scotty Barnes and Emmanuel Quickley. And I still feel like Siakam to the Pacers has made more sense for them than OG did for the Pacers. I would expect them to take Siakam at this point. But if that's the case, like, are they getting Jarris Walker? Because not a bad player to start including in your team. Is it the Thunder pick that the Pacers own? Very easily could be. That's, for 29-year-old expiring free agent, like, it's a good haul. So do that. Take care of business this year, next year. Be that good young upstart team. This also keeps Masai and Bobby Webster employed. Look, do I think they would have been fired if these guys had walked? Maybe, probably not, but maybe. But now the turnaround, the pitch to management is, we have a team around Scotty Barnes. We can get this pick. It'll be a top 6 pick. We'll have Quickly. We'll have, maybe Walker. We'll have all these other guys and other assets, and let's just keep working on it, and that'll be great. And that's the sell. And I think that's a compelling one, especially because look at how the media has often eaten up what Masai Ujiri does, sometimes when it's not necessarily as deserved as it should be.
Next up, Alex, aka Fargo Tufo. It's bad enough that I lost my bet with Macri last night. They had a bet going that we wouldn't see more than 5 minutes of Randall at the 5 this year. And last night, for the fourth quarter alone, we saw more than 5 minutes of Randall at the 5. So not bad job by you, Alex. I would have taken the under on that bet too. So John wins that. But then he adds, but one of my favorite Knicks is going to play for a team I hate. Yeah, I empathize with you, Alex. I don't have the same distaste for the Raptors. For personal reasons that Jeremy knows. I have bit of a complicated history with Canada, but yeah, I completely understand that it's gonna suck watching one of your favorite former Knicks now play for a team you don't like. It'd be like if you got traded to Boston or Brooklyn or my God, if you got traded to Miami today, how annoyed I would have been that he'd be like the perfect Heat culture guy, So next up,
Hush Z, the most bittersweet trade that has happened in the past decade. Lost 2 homegrown, so I loved like family members. I wish them the best. Let's go Knicks. I would say this has got to be the most bittersweet because the Porzingis trade happens, and it's like this all happened so quickly. No pun intended. And I get that this trade happened out of nowhere today, but it almost feels like we've talked about OG for so long that it was like, yeah. And RJ's been struggling for so long. It was like, yeah. And IQ's contract situation, that was also, so yeah. And you put all that together and you get this. In terms of other homegrown talent, I think a lot of fans certainly felt about Obi, but the writing was on the wall in a different way there. And Obi didn't quite have the same impact on a city. I mean, here's the other thing to keep in mind. The Knicks tanked the 2018-19 season, and their reward for that awful year was RJ Barrett. And so when you go from that and you have the worst odds and you don't get Zion or Ja, and it's RJ, and you put your beliefs in the young scoring guard who is 19 years old, there's a lot to take from that. There's a lot of promise there. And then you just keep building with them, and you want to believe in them, and you want them to succeed. And Quickly being, Quickly was one of those margin guys where you expect a nice thing. You hope for something, right? There's so many of those picks in the 20s where you're just like, they didn't become NBA caliber players. They didn't become rotation players, and Quickly became a starter with the 25th pick in the draft. So to watch him shoot up the draft boards, the Knicks trade up, they get him. It hurts. It definitely hurts, but we all know what the name on the front of the jersey is always going to be larger than the name on the back.
Hush you with another one. I'm happy about OG and Precious. Even Malachi is sneaky potential. The thought of an OG Mitch pick and roll defense. Woof, sign me up any day of the week. Good time. If Mitch is back anytime.
If Mitch is back in here next year, then yeah, that's going to be a great defense. I genuinely don't know if they're going to ever have the opportunity to play together. I really don't.
Well, maybe Mitch will talk to the doctors that Aaron Rodgers talked to, and he'll be back within he'll be back next week at a certain point. who believes in science better? Who knows science better than quarterback of the New York Jets, Aaron Rodgers? Anyway, James Lee, as an official KFS RJ hater, my question is, why is no one sad that RJ is leaving? Not a rhetorical question, but I don't wonder why at all. James, you may win for most poorly aged super chat of the day, because there are people sad that RJ is leaving. I think even his most staunch of defenders had gotten to a point where the numbers just are what they are. I was at the point where I was like, if I don't think a trade is going to happen, I think there needs to be a starting lineup change and a serious, honest conversation about RJ and what he is and what his role is on this version of the team, especially when you looked at what the Josh Hart, Emmanuel Quickly lineup data said. And look, if you're an RJ Barrett lover, like the antithesis of James Lee and certain other KFS people, you should be happy that he went to probably the perfect place for him to build the new version of himself, a place that he is quite literally a national hero. When you talk to people in Canada about RJ, he is just looked at it very differently than the polarizing player he is in New York.
Agreed.
Next up,
Kevin
I'm
Danishevsky.
letting you read this one.
I know we are viewing this from New York's perspective, but can you guys spend a minute on the Toronto's perspective? Why do you think they agreed to the deal? Sure, Kevin. So first and foremost, the Raptors really needed someone to run the offense. Schroeder's not the answer. They need someone to pair with Barnes, who is going to be the offensive focal point, and having someone like that in IQ is incredibly important. I am surprised that they took RJ. The obvious reasons are Canada, but the thing that always questioned me was play style. And I just feel as though I mentioned that the Raptors have been really in on deflections per game, but it's also maybe shifted because they have a different head coach who maybe doesn't emphasize that quite in the same way that Nick Nurse used to. So as a result, perhaps their process has changed. I also don't know if other teams were interested or interested. And you could look at that as, well, maybe the Pacers weren't willing to give what the Knicks gave. Maybe they were, but OG was threatening to cost a lot of money. How much was agency representation a factor in all of this, in facilitating a player to get to where he might want to go? So from the Toronto angle, it could always be our backs are against the wall. What's the best we can do here? And we could do far worse than Emmanuel Quickly to be our starting point guard. RJ Barrett, who is Mr. Canada in a lot of ways for them, a homegrown player, and the 31st pick in the draft in all likelihood. So I guess the other point is it depends on how you view RJ from a pick standpoint and how you view Quickly from a pick standpoint. Because Quickly is certainly going to be positive draft assets. What he would be on his own, I don't know. We won't know. That's not how he was traded. And he won't likely be dealt for future picks because he's better as a player than what the future picks would be. And RJ, it's a really tricky situation because he is a higher usage, inefficient player who is still 23 years old, has time on his side, but just hasn't changed his stripes, so to speak. So I don't, it's a calculated risk, but the bet is on Quickly and on RJ to be there with him. Because also there are worse things for Scotty Barnes than to be flanked by a player who can still go out and get 20 points per game, especially for a team that their focus doesn't have to be on winning this year. And they can always retool and turn around and be like, what can we do moving forward? It'll be a transitional next few years for them anyway. And I think that's probably where RJ will fit just fine transitionally.
I was pulling a graphic, so maybe I just tuned out for a second and missed. But did you mention what they might do with Siakam?
Yeah, I did. I still think they're going to go to the Pacers because they really need an advantage creator, and they have equity. And I think it'll be something along the lines of Walker, salary filler, and the Thunder pick that the Pacers own, which is like 25th right now. That's my guess, because I don't think Siakam's going to bring you a ton. He's 29 years old. good player, but removed from his All NBA season. I don't see a ton of needs. Maybe he goes Sacramento. I just wouldn't like that fit. It's definitely wouldn't involve Keegan Murray. The Pacers just feel like a kind of easy spot for them, for him. So that's my guess.
It'd be funny. Instead of
I've
Walker.
had the same. Okay. Oh, no, I had a different thought. But my thought was actually Obi Toppin finally gets a chance to start. Finally. And then a power
they trade
forward
for
comes
Siakam
in,
okay.
and Obi's like, I guess it's just not in the cards for me, huh?
My thought was instead of Jarris Walker, Obi Toppin gets traded from Indiana to Toronto, and then it's literally just Toronto. Toronto becomes Knicks North for the Summer League Knicks that never happened because RJ never played with that Summer League team. But you get RJ and IQ and Obi with Scotty Barnes, which would be hilarious because Quentin Grimes used to be the other part of the core, but then he would not be him. It would be Scotty Barnes. That is him playing with IQ, Obi, and RJ. The graphic I was pulling, by the way, this is from at Raptors on Twitter. They've officially welcomed to the North both RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley, and this looks very weird. RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley in Toronto Raptors red and black.
RJ wears red well because of Canada. Quickly does not. I mean, Quickly's a Kentucky guy. He went to the Knicks. Like, that man should be in blue. It's weird to see him in red. That sucks. But
I agree that it's jarring when you see it first.
Yep, 100%.
Alex, aka Fargo Tufo, which starter runs with the bench unit? I'd guess OG plus MM, Miles McBride, Dante DiVincenzo, Hart, and Precious Achiuwa. I'm putting Grimes back in the starting lineup. So we should mention Quentin Grimes is questionable tonight. So the Knicks have their current starting five. Well, no, not their current starting five because RJ Barrett will not be there. So they have the Supernova starting five, which I assume is what they'll go with tonight. Miles McBride and let me actually pull it up. Miles McBride, Taj Gibson, Evan Fournier, Ryan Arcidiacono, all available tonight. We'll see if Quentin Grimes is upgraded from questionable. He has an illness, is what they said, non-COVID related illness. So I don't want to say I'm writing tonight off as a loss. I am curious, especially after Evan Fournier just said I'm never going to play for the Knicks again, like what that's going to potentially mean for tonight. If he doesn't play tonight, he's right. He's never playing for the Knicks again. But I guess we'll see. I would also, to Alex's point, think either OG runs with the second unit or maybe Tibbs decides to just stagger Brunson and Randall. I don't think he will, but you know what? Well, I didn't think RJ and IQ were going to get traded today. So maybe other things that I don't think will happen soon.
Something also I want to bring up. DJ tweeted about this 12 days ago, and it was relevant then, and it's even more relevant now. DJ tweeted Knicks on catch and shoot threes, guarded versus unguarded. And it listed Brunson, Quickley, Randall, DDV, Barrett, Hart, and Grimes. And if you look at the numbers, I mean, Brunson, for example, when guarded, 42%, unguarded, 56%. Randall, 34, guarded, 33, unguarded. DDV, 37 versus 48. The two lowest players in terms of their catch and shoot abilities when guarded, when this was tweeted, and I don't think it will have changed very much. In fact, I think if anything, it wouldn't have changed much at all. Quickley and RJ both were at 18%. And the next highest person or next lowest person is Josh Hart, 22%, who was shooting 45% unguarded. The point I'm getting at here is it seems like the Knicks made a very calculated decision of let's also be sacrificing two players who this season, for example, were not shooting well when guarded on catch and shoot threes. And the Knicks love catch and shoot threes. That is something they really need. And that's also why, again, I don't love the addition of someone like DeJounte Murray. And the reason why I would hesitate on making such a trade is because it does gum the works this season. But if you're the Knicks, you've got a month and a week until the trade deadline. Wait as long as you can. Wait until the deadline. or closer to it to get someone like DeJounte Murray, because the more games that you have where you don't have to worry about his lower catch and shoot abilities, probably the better. And again, if he's going to actively hurt you, then that's a problem. We need to reconsider that trade as a whole. But based on all of this, and the Knicks have, I don't want to say never, because last year they got Josh Hart a day before the deadline. But traditionally, they were quick to the draw in getting Derrick Rose. They got him Super Bowl weekend before the deadline by like a month. They got Cam Reddish a month before, 3 weeks before the trade deadline. So they have operated neatly, cleanly, and efficiently ahead of schedule when it comes to deadlines. I wonder if they will go to the last minute to get someone else. It all depends on how other teams are doing, and maybe they're just waiting like vultures to see which teams die. Like, well, I guess now's the time, huh? So that's one possibility.
Hush Zoo, if the Knicks won the last two, is OG and Nick right now? Interesting alternate reality. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Because again, I
think
still
they make
do
the move, even if they're 19 and, I guess at that point, 19 and 12 on the season.
Again, it comes down to, and I'm not entirely sure what the I talked about the New Year's Eve deadline that Bobby Marks tweeted about. I don't know if that deadline was already preset. My guess is it might have been. If that were the case, then that's a good deadline to have. I don't know. At first, I thought it might have been okay. Well, because the Knicks lost these games and the Raptors lost these games, but it might have just been a more CBA focused thing, that marriage of convenience as a result of it.
Yeah, I'll let you
Zach
read this one.
Horwitz. Sure. I'm mortified. I just realized the jersey countdown. Yep.
In the intro. Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm keeping
I
it
know.
as is for now. I don't have another number 9 that matters. I don't have a number Dennis Smith Jr. You want me to put that as a new number 5 in the front? I think the jersey countdown is good for what it is at the moment.
Also, it's not like the jersey countdown is exclusively players who are currently on the Knicks. It is about
Very true.
Knicks past and present. So maybe there comes a point where the Knicks get a number 9 and RJ doesn't fill that void. But until then, he's very, very much here.
Next up, Jesse M. Seeing a lot of emotional takes flying. Everything will be fine in a few days. I love this trade. Then his second one, my super chat 2 days ago declared, I'm counting down days till RJ is off the team. Welp, LOL.
Didn't take very long, Jesse.
Yes. Speaking of countdowns, I'll just read a bunch. Zach Horowitz, thrilled I was able to return my recent RJ jersey.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to those folks who got RJ and IQ jerseys. I hope you didn't take the tags off, or that you used American Express. Because my quickly jersey, as I mentioned, is not returnable, and that's fine. I don't think I would do it anyway.
My goodness. What's this AI thing that's been going around where you get a kid a jersey he doesn't like, and the kid is crying, and the parents are laughing at him? I wonder if that is someone's probably making that AI thing at the moment. So
very possible.
Juanon, Precious mentored by Taj might be something to watch as well. Just wanted to throw that out there because that boy has some talent and fits Tibbs. We didn't really talk about Precious Achiuwa that much. What do you think?
Again, I am still skeptical about long term. He's a really good offensive rebounder. It's just I think at this point right now, it's kind of like we are in desperate need of some reinforcement, because God bless Taj. He's I mean, the man's timeless, and yet he is old. And he'd probably be the first to admit that he's an older guy, but he's smart enough to stay in the league, and he's built great relationships to be in this position. I just don't know if Precious is really going to do very much, because he doesn't seem like their type of player. So
this is, of course, a question I have for S. Barahini, who watched every minute of Precious Achiuwa in a Raptor uniform. And I mean, it's one of the questions I'll ask tomorrow when I get the chance to talk to him.
I will say, I thought you guys did a great pregame pod when you had him on last time. The clip about OG, when he was saying, I just don't see a trade. My honest to God, first reaction was, I don't know about that, man. There will come a time where we've all been there. We've all looked at our favorite teams. This isn't going to happen, and I don't blame him one bit. But when it happened in real time, I was like, okay, we'll see.
So I'll give my honest reaction that. When I say honest, because it wasn't necessarily to him on the pod, because I was trying to keep it cordial, and like he did mention, like, that being said, Quickly's awesome, so that would be a perfect trade if I wanted it. The guy's also in the Toronto locker room, so my thought was like that might be what the organization is peddling out to be like, we value him, we think we can re-sign him, so you're gonna have to blow us away with a player that we want back. Clearly, Emmanuel Quickly is a player that they wanted back, so. El Corian.
We skipped a.
Oh, did I?
Yes.
Oh, yep. Apologies. Yes, I did. James Lee. Hey,
James. This is for me, so I'll read this.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Actually, I shouldn't cut you off. Hey, JC. Most of the assets that were rumored to be traded with Spider are gone. Deal breaker was Quentin Grimes, which in hindsight, not worth at all, I think. What are your overall thoughts on this? Yeah, I mean, the Knicks still have all of their picks, all 11 first-round picks. We'll see if that Wizards pick conveys. Even if it doesn't, they still have 10 first-round picks. This is where I think, again, trading Fournier helps them get somewhere. But this is the prevailing question. If you got Donovan Mitchell, who are you really trading? It's not very easy. It's not. There aren't a lot of options. Then you go to the Embiid section. It's a lot easier to trade for him when you take the player that you would traded Fournier for and add Mitchell Robinson there and all the picks. That makes sense there too. But a lot has to shake out in the playoffs before we know. I wouldn't say yes. Most of the assets are gone, but they're just different assets, and that's the beauty of having so much to work with. Where the Knicks can lose Emmanuel quickly and be like, yeah, we still have more than enough in our war chest to make it worth the team's while to get that next best player. But you know what I think it is, and it kind of just dawned on me. I'm excited, not just because I do really like OG Anunoby. I'm excited because this represents the closing of one chapter and the opening of a new one. It's not raising the ceiling of this team like we've talked about, but it does signify, oh, wow, the Knicks they might really be one move away from being a legitimate team. And you know me, I've thought for a while now, this team is two pieces away, a superstar and a wing defender. They got me my wing defender, and I'm very happy about that. But this is almost like that moment when, you know, that kind of like naivete that you have leaving college, Andrew, and over time, something just snaps into place. You're like, this is adulthood. This is kind of moving in that direction. That's what this trade feels like. It feels like, you know what? Time to put the toys away. It's time, unfortunately, to be an adult. And I don't necessarily like it, but you lean into adulthood and then you get to enjoy the perks of being an adult, which can be awesome. It can be very stressful, but really great. And this is the Knicks were a couple of years in their gawky teenage years. Last year, they were, enjoying some of the highs and getting back on track. And now it's basically we're in our mid-20s. We have to embrace adulthood. And pretty soon then it's going to be late 20s and early 30s. And, life gets better for a lot of people, I'm sure. But in this analogy, bear with me. This feels like we're growing up here.
Jeremy, I fully see the analogy. Like I loved college. It was I could hang out with all of my best friends that I made, and we lived in the same dorm together. And life was very simple: go to class, be passable, and C's get degrees. And I loved college and the lack of responsibilities. I also enjoy the perks of adulthood, I don't know, paying for food when I'm hungry, which I wasn't able to do in college because we were all so freaking broke.
Yeah.
Thank you, James Lee. El Coriano 11. 48 Grimes picks for Keldon Johnson. I do not think the Spurs do that.
I don't think the Spurs do that. I also don't think the Knicks do that. I do agree, though. I think El Coriano's onto something here in a similar vein of Murray with someone who's on a cheaper contract that you can acquire. But I don't know if this is quite the move. I think that on the resale value this summer, Murray would hold more value than Keldon Johnson. Johnson, I'm sure, offers quite a bit more of. He's not that different from RJ in terms of how his play style is. He's not supremely different. And I think that they're going to want to look for a ball handler in a way that Johnson doesn't quite provide, which is why I still wonder if Murray is that target, especially with the smoke that comes of it. So I don't think it'll be Keldon. I'm with you. I think from the Spurs perspective, it's like, I guess, but sure. No, I don't know. Let's not do it. That's kind of how I feel like.
Hush Zoo, do you think Dolan put pressure on Leon?
I think the pressure's been there the whole time. It's
Well,
give me
okay.
a winning ball club. I don't think it's been you got to get me OG Anunoby because I'm feeling an itch. I think it's more you guys do your thing. You know the CBA better than I do. I have given you full reign. You can spend what you need to, but go for it. That's where I believe we are at.
I agree with Jeremy. What I mean by no is I don't think he called up yesterday after the Magic game and said, do the deal. I don't think this was the Melo trade. I think this was a move that they had been wanting and considering. And then to the Bobby Marks deadline of it all that Jeremy brought up, this just worked out. To where there's pressure, I also agree with Jeremy. I will say, I don't think Dolan is as like that Sphere in Vegas is his focus at the moment. He wants to build the best rock and roll venues that exist in the world, let alone the country. So I think if it was like, hey, the Raptors will throw in funding for a new Sphere in Chicago or Toronto, then he'd be like, do the deal. You need to do the deal. I honestly think that is. I've also kind of heard that is his focus at the moment. It's why the Knicks and Rangers operating competently the way they have the last couple of years is probably because Dolan has had his hands off and let his experts be experts.
And mind you, the Sphere is hemorrhaging money. It is in a very bad spot financially. They fired their CFO. So I hope that he keeps trying to, I hope that James Dolan can find his Leon Rose or his Chris Drury for the Sphere because it needs it. But in the meantime, his sports team's doing great. It's a good time to be a Rangers fan. It's a good time to be a Knicks fan. I never thought I always thought one had to be bad in order for the other to succeed because I was not alive in 1994. So I didn't get to witness the run of each teams, but it's been one or the other. And it's weirdly both of them now doing well. So I'll take it. But yeah, no pressure from them. Perry Eckhart, Jeremy, who's the piece? Sad to see IQ go, but you guys have talked me off the ledge. But if Stephen A likes this, we're all fucked. Yeah, if Stephen A likes this, I might have to completely reevaluate my own thinking. Again, I think it'll be the three guys that we mentioned that will be of interest. Embiid, Mitchell, Booker, no order, just the way that it kind of is shaken out in terms of how I said them. So I'll stick with that order to begin with. It all depends. Like the way I see it with Philly is any roadblocks that you would have had are, in my opinion, they should take a hit because the one main thing that always came about with the Raptors, and I saw it repeatedly, especially I saw it when I would bring it up. The Raptors won't do business with the Knicks because the Raptors are being sued by the Knicks. And I think the only thing that's like, okay, well, maybe this can't happen to me is a trade between the Knicks and the Nets. That's the one embargo I do not think gets lifted. But do I think that, Daryl Morey will refuse to trade Embiid to a division rival? I don't think that holds water. I just don't. I think it's a different story if Daryl Morey hates the package that the Knicks would be offering. That's a different thing. But if you're Daryl Morey, and Joel Embiid comes to your office, especially like they're playing well, they're doing great. None of this matters. None of the regular season matters. It has been, and always will be. What is Joel Embiid doing in the playoffs with the Sixers this year? And if that doesn't work out, I mean, we're going to have a new conversation about CAA and influence and how that can work out. Donovan Mitchell, if it doesn't work out with Cleveland, what's that going to look like? Devin Booker, I still think he's at least a year away. I really do. But you just don't know these things. It's very possible that it could shake out that way. So that's the forefront of it, where I think it's one of those three guys. It might sound crazy, but if you play your cards right, and this is where the value of time comes in, maybe you can get two of them. And again, I know how that sounds. You're telling me the Knicks get 2 guys in there. I don't know. But what I can tell you is that we thought OG Anunoby was going to cost more than he did. Joel Embiid probably going to be 2-time MVP unless someone like SGA comes around or whatever that might be. He'll cost a lot, but also the track record for centers, especially when they're 31 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think it's going to be the same value as people think. Now, it could be closer to the Gobert deal, right? It doesn't have to eclipse that, but it also depends on how many teams would want Embiid, given his age, where they're at, all these things. I think the Knicks would pay a lot for him, but then you add the value of time and unloading picks, and maybe Randall's part of it for someone like Booker, or whatever it might be. But one thing at a time. But you have to keep the distant future in mind. But for right now in the present, that's important. And I still keep going back to, man, if OG can extend at a lower amount, that does so much for the Knicks in terms of what they can and can't do. So much.
I'm just going to add one wrinkle that I hadn't considered until looking at Tim Bontemps' tweet from 4 hours ago just now. So the Raptors will be playing a bit shorthanded, without Precious, without Malachi, without Anunoby tonight. Who do they play? The
Raptors tonight? Yes.
They play the Detroit Pistons on a 28-game losing streak. I'm just going to say this. If the Pistons don't win tonight against the shorthanded Toronto team, it may never happen. They may be going 2-80 this year because this is their new best shot to get, they're on a back-to-back. In fact, I think that game starts at 6 p.m. Eastern. So it starts in about an hour. By the way, I sent a text out to Benji that when he turns his phone back on, he'll obviously respond to. If we're still on, which should be soon, sundown.
Yeah.
If we're still on, I would like Benji to come on and react with us. We'll see if
that would be great.
Actually able to.
Yeah.
So quick. Go ahead.
It's a great point about the Raptors where it's Masai being like, the Pistons can't beat us if we actively forfeit this game. Like, it's not a loss. We lost this game. We didn't lose to them. So
yeah. What's going to be funny is when we look back in 30 games and it's like the Pistons have lost, or 20 or so games, the Pistons have lost 49 of the last 50 games. And the one game they won was when the Raptors were shorthanded against them after the OG Anunoby trade. So just to speed up the process a little bit, because a lot of you have been very great with your generosity, I'm just gonna read and feed them to you, and that's what we'll do. I'll be Chris Paul, you be Blake Griffin. Next up from Busy. Wish Mitch was healthy. Can't wait to see Grimes, OG, and Mitch on the court together. If we see that happen, Jeremy.
I don't think we will, but we'll see.
Brandon Kohler, sad to see RJ and IQ go, but this unlocks our offense in an interesting way. JB Randall will have more open space with an elite three-point shooter on their drives.
Agreed. That'll be huge.
Sin Nick, I always love the clever names that show up in here. Y'all are making Leon Rose sound like a genius. I think I would agree.
Leon Rose is a really smart guy. He also has found people who are really good at what they do. Some of the best. Brought him into a room. If you surround yourself with smart people, that does a lot for you. And that's exactly what he does. And, a lot of moves. There's some moves that didn't pay off and some moves we'd like back. But that's all part of the process, especially when you see the moves that are working out. And hopefully this is one of the ones that does. I think it will.
From Mo So, hey KFS, what do you think about trading for Donovan Mitchell using Grimes, Evan, Deuce, the Knicks 24 and 26 first-round picks, plus Dallas, Washington, and the Bucks pick for Mitchell? Your thoughts? So 3 protected, 2 unprotected in 24 and 26, and then Quentin Grimes, Evan Fournier, and Deuce McBride.
I gotta think if the math works on that. I'll try it with Fanspo. I mean, look, the thing about the picks, right? If I'm Cleveland, I don't want a 24, 26 pick. I want 25, 27, because those are the picks I traded away. I probably can't get a 29 pick out of it, but I want 25 and 27 to fill in where Stepien might screw me over. I don't know. Again, I'll think about the math. I don't hate this. I mean, the Knicks, again, need a ball handler, so it'd be great to do that, but it all depends on where they're going. Yeah.
I would love this trade, Mo. I agree with Jeremy. And this is just from talking to people in Cleveland too. If they're not getting a stud back for Mitchell, the picks are going to be what matters. And it would be to fill in for the picks that they gave up for Mitchell. So unfortunately 24 and 26 aren't the ones that I think would work out. And I honestly think Cleveland, because I think other teams can beat the offer for Mitchell if the Knicks aren't including 27 and 29 in the deal, whether it be Miami or even Brooklyn.
Yeah, I will say it does. The math works, but I don't know if the Knicks then hit the luxury tax, hit the tax apron. I'll keep working on it. I'm curious because again, it can work, but Fanspo doesn't take the. Actually, sometimes it does. I'll figure it out, but it's an interesting thought nonetheless.
Does Cleveland accept that offer that we're calculating, or Miami's offer? Tyler Hero, Jaquez Jr., 3 picks.
Oh, I would take Miami's offer over that.
Does
100%.
Does Cleveland accept the Knicks offer or Cam Johnson or Thomas? Cam Johnson can't be traded right now, right? Because he just signed an extension.
No, he could be traded at the deadline. Yeah,
so he can be traded at the deadline. So, and I guess we're assuming to Mo's credit, he's saying a deadline deal, or pick a Brooklyn iteration that doesn't include Mikal Bridges.
Also, we've talked about roster spots. That's another factor. But no, I think, again, I just don't. There's a part of me that doesn't feel like it's Mitchell at the deadline.
I don't think Mitchell at the deadline either, which is why I imagined this was an off-season question. But if we're talking this deadline, I think Miami's in pole position. I also think the Cavs have kind of turned it around lately and are like 6-3 in their last 9. So I think this is an off-season question, and I fear the Miami Heat and their ability to get a guy to want to go play for them. And what Jaime Jaquez Jr. has shown this year both makes him a foundational starter for them, now a foundational rotation piece for them, and one good playoff in Heat culture could be enough for them to pull the trigger on a Donovan Mitchell trade. That's my thought, at least.
Yeah, and for whatever it's worth, I did plug it in to Spot Track. If you did that trade that was just mentioned, and it just gets the Knicks under the hard cap space by $1.3 million, they could make it work. Again, I don't know if that's where they'd go because it's the draft equity. If they could get away with 2024 and 2 protected picks, then maybe they do it. But the last thing that you want is, I just feel like there are a lot of cooks in the kitchen, smaller ones. I don't know. The Mitchell pairing it still doesn't sit right for me in the same way it didn't when the time came with Brunson. I just don't love that level of size. OG helps. OG plugs the hole that you need. But also, what if you didn't need to worry about any size concerns because you just didn't have Donovan Mitchell and instead focused your efforts on another player? But again, I don't think the Cavs are going to say, we'll trade Donovan Mitchell before they even get the chance to offer him a max extension this summer. They owe it to themselves to do that, even if it might be foolish. That's why they made the trade. It's to keep that star in their market, and they're not going to get anyone who's as good if they trade Donovan Mitchell for spare parts.
Next up, David Crockett. This is directed at me. A baseball super chat. GMAC, the Braves got Chris Sale today? How am I just now finding out about this?
You didn't? Well, because you were at a movie.
What the?
Oh, yeah, they got Chris Sale.
So, to be clear, Chris Sale was like low-key washed in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
That to continue, David, I'm going to look up this deal now. David Crockett adds an angry emoji of a guy cursing. Bleep them for not letting us have this one. Following my blowing my Nia vibes. I hate them. JK, go Knicks. Look, the Braves just got a distressed asset in Jared Kelenic from the Mariners, and I'm terrified of that. They're getting a distressed asset from the Red Sox and Chris Sale, and I'm terrified of that because Now, Chris Sale's going to be like 4-0 with an ERA under 1 against the Knicks against the Mets in 4 starts. And I fully expect Jared Kelenic to hit a couple home runs against the Mets, including a walk-off against Edwin Diaz at some point this year, fully flipping the trade against the Mets and in favor of the Braves. I'm going to look up the full deal in a not Knicks circle. Thank you, David, for bringing that to my attention. John mentioned he was at SNY. I decided to use the day to be a good husband and take the missus to a movie. And I turned my phone off when I'm at the movies. And when I turned the phone on, the Knicks had traded IQ and RJ for OG Anunoby. So next up. Oh, from G-Bo. IQ is not going to stay. Wants to start. Good trade. IQ didn't have a choice, G-Bo. He was a restricted free agent. So the Knicks absolutely could have matched whatever offer that there was. I think he wanted to start, and he has a chance to. So that's why if you're I'm a pro quickly guy, and I'm happy he's hopefully going to get a chance to start, and we'll see what he is in the future, and agree that this is a good trade.
And there's something with the optics as well, which our friend Bernard mentioned, which is paying IQ more than paying Brunson just doesn't look good. Whether we like it or not, that optically speaking, it's like with Yamamoto earning more than Garrett Cole. When Yamamoto's never played in the MLB and now he's earning more than the guy who just won the Cy Young Award, there's a weird vibe to it. This is
the optics exist. Agreed. I agree. Hush Zoo. Jokes aside, would the Nets pick up the phone? No. Next up from Cynic. Love you, Hush Zoo. Thank you. It's a funny joke. It's never happening. That's also directed at you, Kevin. From Cynic again. Who gets minutes tonight? Do you think OG can get here by Minnesota game Monday? So Steph Bondy did report that the OG and all of the players that were traded today should be able to get to their new locations by their next game after tonight, which is Monday's game. So I expect OG Anunoby to play the matinee on New Year's Day against Minnesota. That's my expectation, at least. And we get to see that the Knicks' new starting 5 looks like. He also adds, Jeremy is an effing genius, and I co-sign.
Thank you. No, but I appreciate it.
Yes, 100%. That's
We're all good. We're all good
at what we do, and you're very good at what you do.
I'm very good at this. I don't know about other stuff, but thank you.
You are a genius at this, okay?
My head doesn't need to get larger. Thank you, but I'm good.
Dom Cappuccini. Well, my super chat last night might have been answered in regards to how the Knicks went out of sync after Monday. Trade rumors. Love the player. Love no first. Miss IQ, but makes sense. I'd be curious to hear. I mean, you said it. You don't think the news got out of this trade potentially happening. I think I haven't watched the game yet from last night. I probably never will now. But the Magic game, I probably just never know. I have no reason to. Although
I missed it, and there's a part of it that's like, is there anything I can take away from it? And now I'm thinking, probably not.
It is a historical document now. It's the last time RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley played for the New York Knicks. So if you want to go relive that, you can. Probably not the most anticipated Knicks rewind. It's more of a bittersweet one, but
no.
I mean, I saw what the second unit looked like. The Thunder game is an interesting final game for RJ and IQ, where one shouldn't have been subbed in for the other, and then they're both gone 3 days later.
There's also, I wanted to rewatch this because I thought, I'll bring this up for the podcast because it'll be kind of interesting moving forward. Now it's not really relevant. I could have sworn that there was a moment when IQ and RJ are playing together, and IQ has the ball at the top of the key, and RJ is on the wing, where IQ was looking at RJ to pass it, and then it was like RJ's wide open, and IQ just instinctively was like, I can't do it. And then the ball wound up getting to RJ, who missed an open 3. And it was in that moment where I was like, this doesn't feel like animosity or anything between the two. It could have just been one player, it likely was one player being like, not his night, let's look for something else. But man, their teammates in a new city, in a new team, and that one play just kind of stuck with me for whatever it was worth. And yeah.
Fargo Tufo, again, Alex, gonna have to invest in earplugs so I don't have to hear Clyde say Anunoby 50 times a game. Also, the G League Fairy blessed Deuce. Let's effing go Knicks. I'm very curious where Deuce McBride falls in the rotation. Now, I do think he'll get minutes. I'm assuming he'll now be the 12-minute player, the 8 to 12-minute player that Quentin Grimes had become, and then Grimes' minutes go up. Yeah, this is something to pay attention to over the next couple weeks, so how this plays out until the Knicks potentially make another move.
Yeah.
You know?
I could imagine Clyde oftentimes just saying OG as opposed to having to say his last name. I also want to have Anunoby as a dark horse candidate that slips out every now and then. They're just, I think Anunoby is a good call though by Alex. Yeah, but Deuce will fill in where he needs to, and they're certainly going to need him tonight because they don't have too many active bodies out there.
Next up, Dom Cappuccini. Jeremy, you don't see Precious as a failsafe if iHeart raises his free agency value in a big way?
I don't, especially because I think that another team could very much be interested in Precious Achiuwa, and the Knicks would then there's a way if the Knicks could turn Achiuwa, I can't mention his name, but Andre Drummond, where it's like turning one thing into another who's a better fit. Because now the Knicks don't have the luxury of just drafting for talent or trading for talent. They've been going very much towards pure fit. Who fits around Jalen Brunson? Who fits around Julius Randle? And oftentimes there's an overlap for both of those things. It's shooting and defense. Those are nice things to have. With Achiuwa, maybe they see him as something more than what he's been. I am skeptical. They love their rim protecting bigs who don't shoot the ball, who stay close to the basket, who can rebound a lot. And he does one of those things. And he'd have to change a lot as a player. And I don't think the Knicks have the time or patience to work with Achiuwa to be a player that he has not been yet. Whereas they could take that player and the Bulls employ Vucevic. Vucevic spaces the floor, one of the best shooting bigs among them, in the fives, in the NBA. And that's not what Drummond's game is. So do I think Precious Achiuwa is close to Vucevic? No, but his game might be closer. But I haven't also spent a lot of time watching Achiuwa. He's just not been a focal point for me, and he hasn't seen a ton of time as is. So I just don't love the fit as the player he is today.
Next up, Will Oliver. Sad to see both go, but got to take big swings. Let's go Knicks. Cosign on the sentiment, Will Oliver. Dom Cappuccini. I don't believe you on the first 3 words you say. My last thoughts. I woke up, thanks to John's sobering postgame, to the thoughts that without number 23, I should check expectations to 6 to 8 seed instead of 4 or 5. I wonder if this is not so fast, my friend moment once the new pieces gel. I mean, I guess we'll see. I think the Knicks were still in the 4 to 7 range. Like this glut between 4 and 7, I think the Knicks were just firmly in. And while I think OG and IQ, as far as impact goes, will be somewhat of a wash, although I admit IQ brings something more offensively. I'm going to be very careful how I say this. The way RJ has been playing over the last 6 weeks, less RJ would have been better. And now no RJ exists. So I wonder if just that subtraction alone helps in that sense. What do you think, Jeremy?
I think it's a very accurate and fair statement. The Knicks have also just been through the ringer with these games. I mean, playing the Celtics and the Bucks 10 times is kind of cruel. But thinking about since December 1st, I mean, they played what? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Played 9 games. 8 of those 9 games were on the road, even if one of them was in Brooklyn. Then to come home and play the Bucks and lose, then to win on Christmas Day, to go on the road again, Oklahoma City and Orlando, and then go to Indiana on the second night of a back-to-back, which is tonight. And then you get to start the new year with the best team in the West at home with the Timberwolves, and it gets a little bit lighter from there. Not a lot. It's a competitive league right now, and the Knicks just happen to draw a very difficult schedule. Things will get a bit better, mind you. I mean, playing the Bulls 3 times the month of April would, on paper, lead to hopefully some easy wins. teams that are tanking. You're playing Detroit at home now for all of these games. So I still think, I don't think anything changed from that range. I just think if a team gets the 4th seed, it's because they had a very favorable schedule. Like the Heat get to play in a division where 3 of their teams are going to probably be in the bottom 8 this year of the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is fine. It's just it's the nature of how it's operating, where they just have to deal with a really tough schedule. The Knicks do. So whatever.
I don't know how much stock you put. Well, we all should take stock in this. What Tankathon ranks as like strength of schedule, because they're just using records and what the Knicks records are. And the Knicks have like a ton of home games the rest of the year too. The Knicks have the 18th toughest schedule, so the 12th easiest schedule remaining in the NBA. And after playing Minnesota on Monday, that will get even easier because they will be done with Minnesota. We'll not have to play them again the rest of the year. They only have one more game against Milwaukee the rest of the year. One more game with OKC. So like their schedule in theory will get easier after they've made this deal.
Mm-hmm.
So Hush Zoo, is there any chance where the Knicks trade Randall for a superstar? Brunson, OG superstar, or is it Randall here for the long, long time? Go ahead.
I mean, what sounds better than Brunson OG superstar? To me, it's Brunson OG Randall superstar. I'm just saying, if you can find a way to make it work and then use him, then do it.
Mythic Monty, from what I can recall, DeJounte Murray can't be traded until mid-January because of his extension. The timing on this move seems interesting with that in mind. That's true?
It's early January, but that's correct. It's not like anything could be made today. It's not like there's a trade on the horizon the next week, so we're safe there.
Dom Cappuccini. See, I told you, you're not done. Oh, one more, but very important real quick. Does Precious play defense? See you all later. Hopefully after a win, even without Quickly.
He had one season that I think was very strong defensively, but again, I haven't watched enough of him to be able to talk confidently about Precious Achiuwa's defense. So I'm sure we will see in the coming days.
Simply going by defensive EPM, the good old best advanced metric that exists, most likely. He was, like you said, the 2 years ago, the 2022 season, he had a plus 2.2 DEPM, which was the 94th percentile. Since then, it's down to the 55th percentile last year, and it's even worse this year, the 42nd percentile. So maybe the Knicks, knowing that exists, that the 2 years ago version of him exists, maybe they could try to coach that back into him. I'm very curious if they give that a shot to him to be the new, for him to be like a backup center, even a backup power forward on this team. I mean, they're wild cards. We'll see how much they matter. Anthony Strano, Evan Fournier, and first rounds for Murray next. We've been over this. I highly recommend going back if you haven't listened yet to, well, if you're listening on the pod, you already have. And if you got to this point in the pod, you already probably watched it on YouTube. So Jeremy had an outstanding, if you're watching live and just tuned in, Jeremy broke this down at the very beginning of the show before we got to Super Chats and presented a live cap or no cap theory of how DeJounte Murray might actually be the thing the Knicks target next. And the very coherent and reasonable reasons why. Justin Cole, Hawks fan, sadly, but watch KFS all the time. We appreciate that. Oh, speaking of, Jeremy broke down our situation here regarding DeJounte Murray better than any local guys. Great B-ball content here because Jeremy is a genius and we stan Mr. Cohen and his geniusness here at KFS.
Justin, I'm sorry that your local guys aren't able to evaluate the salary cap, but I appreciate the comments. Thank you.
Especially knowing your local guys. Anthony is next. If Murray is next, is his defense worth the not completely ideal offensive fit? If he's a better defender and fit, is he a better defender and fit than OG, especially next to Brunson? I think that also was broken down at the beginning of this. That it's less about the fit. It's also about the new move that happens after DeJounte Murray, right?
Yeah, it's having a lead ball handler, especially because, not to spook anyone, but Jalen Brunson, need him to stay healthy because right now it's bleak. Having someone who can run an offense is huge. That's important. I'm at the point right now where finding someone who can run an offense, and maybe you're thinking that could be Malachi Flynn.
Jeremy, you froze a bit. Wow. So the idea of
Somewhat
DeJounte Murray
skeptical,
has
to be honest.
sent
The
Jeremy to the Matrix.
the stove is
Hold
too
on, you're
hot. I
froze.
know. My laptop is
Yes,
just
clearly. Oh, so you're on a laptop, which
burning
is
up.
why you're frozen. Do me a favor, leave and come back, and then I'll add you to the stage, and then this way it'll reset a bit if you'd like to.
right.
I'll run 1 or 2 super chats. It's okay. So shout
Sounds
out
good.
to still 1,100 people watching live, by the way. Thank you everybody that's tuned in to a marathon emergency live stream the day before the last day of the year. I want to give a shout out to Caitlin Cooper real quick, who did a pregame pod with me that aged horribly, because we talked about how the Knicks would defend, how RJ would be able to potentially do, and how the Knicks would defend Tyrese Halliburton tonight against the Pacers. We talked about how RJ might be able to cook a bit against the Pacers front court because they're not known for their front court play, and whether or not the Knicks would be able to play the correct minutes distributions between Emmanuel Quickley. Caitlin spoke glowingly about Emmanuel Quickley and his off-ball defense, and yeah, that's where we ended up on this. So I'm gonna read this next one. Hold on. Where's the Hawks fan? Oh, he's gone. Okay, completely lost my spot. Hopefully I don't miss anybody. No, Hawks fan here. Deadward 604. I'll miss IQ, but the thought of having two all defense players, Mitch and OG, in the same lineup with scorers like JB and JR makes your mouth water. Yeah, I've gotten to the point where I actually hope we get to see Mitch play with this team. And we'll see. We will absolutely see if that's a direction that the Knicks go, and keeping Mitchell Robinson and making that possible. Thank you. Darius Thomas, thank you for the contribution. I love KFS, but Jeremy keeps me glued. I agree with GMAC. Jeremy is one of the best capologists. See, I gotta wait for him to come back so he can read that. I'll pull that back up when Jeremy comes back, which I'm sure will be in a second. Next up, Twin Orange. Ooh. So he says, Macri needs to chill on Robert Cross. He is a big contributor to KFS. Jeremy, you killed it today. Gonna miss you when you head over to the NBA. Listen, if we lose Jeremy to a basketball team, I would hope it's the Knicks because I know they're run competently. We will hopefully keep him around here at Knicks Film School. I certainly hope so. Next up, Jason Feldman. Does the second unit swap from RJ to JR feel different now? Ooh, so you're projecting, Jason, that the Knicks would put Julius Randle into the second unit, which that's a fascinating. That's fascinating. I am very curious if Tibbs decides to stagger like that. I don't necessarily know if he will. But I'm very curious if Tibbs were to stagger like that. Hi, Jeremy. Welcome back.
Hey, Andrew. Good to be back. Nice that my computer decided to cool down for a brief minute.
Good. I'm glad we gave you opportunity to chance to cool down. So Darius Thomas added earlier. I love KFS, but Jeremy keeps me glued. And I agree with GMAC. Jeremy is one of the best capologists. A genius, one might say. Yes. Yes, of course. Keep it coming. And then Twin Orange says that John needs to chill on Robert Cross. He's a big contributor of KFS. I think we co-signed that. And then you killed it today, Jeremy. Gonna miss you when you head over to the NBA. And I said, if it's to the NBA, I hope it's the Knicks, because then I'll know they'll run competently.
I love my job. I love what I do here. And this is a blast to be able to have this outlet with Andrew, with John, everyone else on the KFS team. I was actually thinking about this, that 2023 for me was the best year of my life. It's been wonderful, and all of you have been a huge part in that being the reason. So thank you for the platform, the opportunity. I get to work with some of the best people in both my full-time job and this job. Andrew is, I mean, buddy, we've worked for how many years together, and it's always such a
Long time
blast.
ago. Yes, long time ago.
100%. So yeah, no, thank you all. I really appreciate today and this year.
Hush Zoo, do you guys think because Raptors don't have same optics as the Knicks for what RJ was? Hold on. Do you think because Raptors don't have the same optics as the Knicks for what RJ was, could he be coming off the bench for them? Just interesting. I assumed upon this trade that he just slides right into the Anunoby role, and then Dennis Schroeder goes to the bench for IQ. Is that a fair assumption?
Maybe.
It's IQ and Gary Trent Jr. off the bench for them.
I get the feeling, though. It's like also you get RJ in the first moment. It's like, okay, RJ, we've just traded our 6'8" wing, and we've acquired you. And by the way, you're going to be coming off the bench moving forward. I don't know if that helps. I think return-wise, having him and IQ start together might make sense. And Schroeder being bumped down in the pecking order. Agreed.
I'm also going to assume that Toronto saw the same lineup data we saw when RJ was with IQ, and is going to try and replicate that in some way. So, again, it's something to pay attention to, also from the Toronto side, how they use these players, and specifically differently than how they were used with the Knicks. Again, I expect RJ. Oh, this is a continuation. I expect RJ to start, but he will have a huge stretch of bad ball and inconsistency. But he will have his huge stretch of bad basketball and inconsistency. It'll be interesting how the Raptors handle it. I also agree. I think that's, if he has anything like what the last 6 weeks have been, then yes, that will be curious to see if they also feel we have to start him, or they could send him to the bench and give him a different role on that team.
It depends, though. Again, are the Raptors actively trying to win games now, given where their pick situation is? They might be totally fine if RJ is struggling. Because it might lead to losses, which leads to future wins because they keep the pick that they would be yielding. So,
CJ Cervantes, Jeremy, it's your season ticket seat neighbor. You had asked me who the A1 superstar we trade for is. My answer makes even more sense now. Devin Booker.
Shout out CJ. All being well, hopefully I'll see you for that Warriors game, buddy. Yeah, look, Booker makes a ton of sense. I just think that I want to believe what Mensa's saying, that it's available this summer. To be clear, I think even Mensa will be the first to admit that he doesn't think that Booker will be available this summer. But down the line, yeah, again, I think that you'd be hard pressed to look at this team and how Booker would fit in seamlessly. But also, and I wouldn't love the Randall Embiid fit, but I could learn to live with it for the time being. And that's why getting Randall under contract next year is so important, to extend him, because if he's not there, then you might have some problems in terms of facilitating if Booker becomes available. What if you have the salary and sign and trade and all that? So again, I think start with Embiid. And as crazy it might seem, there's indeed an avenue where you could wind up with both, but you have to slow play it at the right time. And a lot of things have to break your way. I'm not saying it's a guarantee by any stretch, but I have felt good about the OG option. I still feel good about one of those guys. CJ, it'd be great if it were Booker. I don't know if the Knicks are even prepared to wait that long. You know what I mean? Like, if Embiid becomes available, it's hard to say, we'll hold on and wait for Booker when that comes to fruition. That's just the trouble. Because all these guys that we see on the roster, plus Joel Embiid, damn, that's a scary team. But thank you for the question, CJ. See you soon.
We have a Benji tweet.
Oh, yes. Here we go.
Says, can't say I didn't try, with a face, to his quote tweeting his tweet from yesterday. Big win tonight. Enjoy. Manifesting an RJ bounce back. See you on the other side. I don't think he knows about the trade yet.
Oh, he just knows about the game.
I think
but
he
not
just
the
saw
trade?
the score and was like, he just logged on and was like, "Oh, can't say I didn't try." Any minute now, another. I sent him the link if he wants.
I
to
don't know
join.
how that could be. His mentions are probably in
Oh,
shambles
I'm
right
sure,
now.
but I mean, you know this from having your mentions be what they are. Sometimes you just ignore the mentions and you're just looking for the score, and sometimes you're single-minded. You don't see the mentions. What I'm curious
Oh,
about.
it was a minute ago. That's fair.
Yep, he just said, "Oh, LOL. I only saw the score." Benji, you're invited to come on and give an analysis if you'd like to, buddy.
You want me to read the super chats and you call him, see if he wants to come on board?
You know what? Yeah, go ahead. I'm
right.
gonna read. Oh, that's you. Hold on a second. Yeah,
I'm
you read
still
the
here.
super chats. I will call
It'll
Ben.
be in the background. All right. From Alex, trade Siakam for Obi, Walker, and Ijax. Reunite Obi and IQ. That could work. That'd be a nice pairing between the two of them. Hope they get reconnected. Yeah. Is Donovan Mitchell a Knick today? The answer to that is currently no. But let's see. I've been feeling for a while the only way Brunson, Donovan Mitchell backcourt works is with OG at the 3. Interesting. Agreed. You need that player to be how do I put it? The Donovan Mitchell of defense, maybe somewhere around that range. That is what OG Anunoby would be. That is important. Agreed, but it's also still a lot of pressure because as much as OG can do, Donovan Mitchell can't grow. That's still an issue with height. I think having two smaller guards in the playoffs, you usually run into problems. But maybe look, if it can be Donovan Mitchell and they feel it can work out, then we'll reevaluate the team and see how it goes. Elton Chung, I wonder if they will make RJ a 6-man there. As we mentioned, it's possible, but he could just very easily be starting. Wouldn't be the worst thing as well for him to come into the fold and be that 6th man if that were his role. But I think I know we talk about the 3rd overall pick pedigree here, but he's a Canadian playing in Canada whose dad is in charge of the Canadian basketball team and is the godson of probably the greatest Canadian player ever in Steve Nash. So there's still as much pressure and spotlight in Toronto as there probably would be in New York for the reasons mentioned. So maybe he is 6-man, but I just kind of doubt it.
I called Benji. We'll see if he.
Okay.
I texted him the link. We'll see if he's able to join.
Listen, we're almost at a runtime of Killers of the Flower Moon. So
almost.
If he can join us, then that's great. Dan Hidalgo, dude, I am shook. Stopped mid treadmill workout. I was doing work for my other job and got a call from my friend Conrad, who did Knicks Illustrated, saying, "Do you see the trade?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And then just noises coming out that I just in shock and shouting. It was in a movie, and Benji.
I had a panicked more reaction, which is why it was more like, "Oh my god, content! Oh my god, content! Oh my god, content!" And when it settled down, it was when I was like, "Oh." I gotta be honest. First, I only thought it was RJ, and then I was like, "Oh, it's RJ and IQ," because I had to make the artwork. And then it was after that when I saw it was a pick, which is why the headline for this was like IQ, Barrett, and picks. At first, I thought I was like, of course they added a pick to this, right?
Yeah.
So I'll let you read the rest.
Twin Orange, what's the ideal number amount for OG to re-sign? I'm trying to remember exactly what Bobby Marks said the max was, as you bear with me as I look, but I think he said something like 2 years and $40 million might have been it. Yes, he said from now on, he will be eligible. Let me actually read this back. Starting on December 31st, Anunoby is eligible to extend for 2 years, $40 million. That would be awesome. The ability for his prime years to be locked up for $20 million a piece as the Knicks build around him, that would be special. So that's ideal. Is it likely? It could be. I don't know what the situation is, but it would be really nice if the Knicks the Knicks and OG Anunoby came to a decision on a contract and lock that down, because the Knicks also will want to know how much money they have to work with in free agency, and OG stringing them along because he wants more money would hurt all of that. Dan Hidalgo, it seems like we draft for talent over fit and trade for fit over talent. Your thoughts? Draft for talent over fit and trade for fit over talent. Maybe. I think it's more just at a certain point, the Knicks realized we can't keep taking shots at Maybe we need more certainty. Cam Reddish made sense on the defensive end. Offensively, there was a lot to be desired, and eventually he couldn't do the catch and shoot work that the Knicks needed, and he was jettisoned. And in this case, yeah, the draft is beneficial because it's young, cheap talent, but it's also talent that is still getting acclimated to the NBA. I think there's a reason why the Knicks haven't drafted in the last couple of years. And I do hope that they add some level of young talent, if not for just growth, but just having salary filler is always good, especially down the line. You never know. So yeah, I don't think it's off base though, Dan. I think that's a fair take for sure. Jean-Marc, Jeremy, what is the next deal? Look in your crystal ball. Your thoughts about this OG trade? Like I've said, love the OG trade. Very sad to see quickly go. Wish RJ the best of luck and hope he turns it around there too. The pick comp was certainly palatable. I still wonder if it's like, hey, what salary can we bring in that then we can flip for the next guy? Because I still don't think that it's there. Like, I understand how the math works for Donovan Mitchell. I thought the idea before was well put together. I just don't think that it's here at the deadline. And if it's not here at the deadline, you need a salary to come in there to be better. Like you need to consolidate. The Knicks made a consolidation trade today. They need to make a consolidation trade involving Fournier and picks in some capacity. I'll look at other players, but the player who has stood out to me the most in terms of situation, talent, resale value, and under contract next year is DeJounte. I don't have to like it. Just I have to acknowledge that not a lot of players fit into that box that I've created that would help the Knicks. And all the trade talk that we saw with Clutch would make sense as a result. Dan Hidalgo, Knicks don't do this if they don't believe in Grimes. Maybe. I mean, it's also possible the Knicks feel Grimes is better suited in a trade in the next 7 months. It could be that. It could be that they see his value, but feel it's better suited in getting them a marquee player.
4 more, by the way.
Brian, you will miss IQ, but trade makes sense. Do we think Grimes is enough of a piece with the picks to land Mitchell? Don't think DeJounte Murray would be right fit. Agreed. I standing up and, figuratively speaking, I don't love the DeJounte Murray fit on the court. It's all about getting to that next piece of the star. So do I think there's enough picks? What's that? Did Benji just tweet?
No. I'll tell you in a second. Read the last. Okay. We'll do 3 super chats, and then I have a surprise for everybody.
I don't think Grimes is enough with the picks. I think it's Grimes and salary of a good player, and maybe Mitchell Robinson. I mean, in this case, it wouldn't be Donovan Mitchell and Mitchell Robinson, but I think it certainly helps to have Quentin Grimes on the Cavs if that's the angle that they were going for. Sam Garcia's dad was waiting for this live stream, driving through Texas with Sam Garcia's mom as we speak. Joined late. Is Grimes probably a part of the superstar trade? Again, I think it's either to get the guy to get the superstar, or it's to get the superstar. One or the other. But it's clearly a lot of people are thinking in a similar way, which I think is appropriate. Calm Lout. If we end up trading for Donovan, where's the usage coming from? Do we then trade Randall for Markkanen? That one, I don't think that the Knicks would have the juice to get both those guys. And I say this again as someone who said, oh, well, there's still a possibility of Embiid and Booker. It's just really hard to do. And timing wise, it's more that I don't think I think you need to get Randall on that next contract in order for him to help you down the line. I don't think it's now. I like Lauri Markkanen a lot. I'm not quite as high as some of our other team members here at KFS, just in terms of fit and everything. But in terms of usage, the Knicks are still going to have a third high usage guy. It's just a matter of what their play style is like, who they want, and going from there.
And then last one.
Kevin Danishevsky, L to the OG. Dude be the OG, and he playing. Yep.
Outstanding.
Logan Roy.
Yes, it's that Succession reference. I'm going to assume that Logan Roy was a Knicks fan, or just had courtside access to Knicks games. Okay, I've teased it enough.
Logan Roy, just very quickly, Logan Roy, for a fact, would have been the type of person who was like, I want to buy the Knicks. I don't care what it costs. Like, I need
Mhm.
to do this. And his father talked him down the ledge. Okay, let's get to the surprise.
Hi, Benji.
Let's go. Let's go.
Benji in
Benji.
complete shock on our screens at the moment. So
So
go ahead. Let me set the stage. Benji, for those who don't know, you know it by now because we all look forward to his tweets. For your religious practices, you turn all technology off on Friday at sundown until Saturday at sundown, which usually if something happens on Friday or Saturday, has us anticipate what happens when you return to technology the next day. And here we are. Not only did the Knicks lose against the Magic on Friday night, but then today at noon, Benji, the Knicks traded, and here's the full trade because I'm not sure you know all the details. It's Emmanuel Quickly, it's RJ Barrett, it's a second round pick. It's a Detroit second. And that's it for OG Anunoby, Malachi Flynn, and Precious Achiuwa. Benji, your thoughts?
it's like one of those videos where you see a baby trying a delicious food for the first time.
Yep.
And their mind's just blown.
Holy cow.
Yes,
There we
that
go.
happened.
Man, shock is my initial thought. Although, not that I didn't think something like this would happen, because I think we all kind of thought something like this would happen. And OG was a very obvious target for a long time. And quickly, the signs were all pointing towards this relationship not continuing into the foreseeable future. And RJ's downward turn over the last month. So it all does make sense. I think the Detroit second is like this year's Detroit second, which means it's going to be the 30th, 31st pick, whatever.
31st pick, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's the feeling around what they're going to do with OG's contract?
It's funny you should ask that. There's a chance that they re-sign him or extend him tonight or sometime tomorrow because he's eligible for 2 years and $40 million deal, which would be less than what he could get on the open market, which it seems like Jake Fisher is reporting OG would be comfortable with because the sense is CAA wants to bring an elite team to the Knicks and they're bringing the expendables. So, and they'll do something
OG
there.
would take 2 years, 40?
That's what he's eligible to sign starting tomorrow. So that's right. For him, that's a huge pay cut. And I believe it would be, all right, you pay me now a little bit. And then when 2 years come about, we'll figure it out from there. But if he signs that, then there's a clear commitment from a lot of these guys that they're willing to take less money to build a contender.
Look, that changes the calculus. So I'm trying to be very, very reasonable about how I'm assessing this. If you get OG at that kind of discount, that changes the way you feel about the deal, right? I mean, I think that makes a big impact. The roster makes more sense. It does. It's interesting that they also brought in backup point guard and backup center help. Very smartly got, I would say, Precious into the deal to help out in their front court for this year. I think a lot of us had come to this place with RJ Barrett where it was like, this might just be who he is, certainly in this context with this team. Where's the growth going to come from? His on-ball usage didn't make a lot of sense in that starting lineup. It never did. It's redundant with Brunson and Randall. And in that sense, OG is the perfect fit. You now have a guy to throw on any team's best player. That is a huge thing for this team. That's going to make a tremendous impact on winning games. But the IQ piece is tough to swallow. It is. Even knowing that I think this was going to head this way at some point, he's really good. He's really, really good. No matter how many minutes he's playing, he's really good and really impactful. And the question is, does OG and this, Flynn / Achiuwa, and I'm pretty down on Flynn. Achiuwa is an interesting player. How does the bench unit look? But look, I think overall I have a positive feel on it. And if you tell me that OG signs on a discount, I think I'm going to be even more positive on it.
Well, the other thought that I have is Flynn's a warm body at this point. Achiuwa, I still don't think, and let me know your thoughts, that he's the right fit based on what the Knicks like. So if that's the case, then hello, baby. If that's the case, that maybe the Knicks look to move Achua for someone like Drummond, and the Bulls are able to get someone younger who fits more of the Patrick Williams, Kobe White timeline that they have. But yeah, I guess the prevailing question is everyone wants to know what's next. So from a fit standpoint, and I know this might have seemed like crazy talk, it might still seem like crazy talk, but the mindset of if you could try to get Donovan Mitchell versus Joel Embiid, with considering Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson staying here, one or the other, which would you pick?
Ignoring the package that would be required, just like player fit.
Just based on fit, assuming that the following players are staying: Brunson.
Yeah, I think it's
Randle.
I think it's Embiid.
Yeah,
I think just quality of player. I think it would take a tremendous fit gap to cancel out just the difference in quality. Embiid's just superior. And if you could get Embiid with, and plus, like, yeah, I mean, a center like that on this team would be, now we're talking like real contention immediately. But I don't know. That doesn't seem like it's on the horizon.
Maybe not. It's possible what they do in the playoffs, but the reason I bring it up is because it impacts what the Knicks do potentially at the deadline. Because if you see both of these players being available this summer, you need the math to make it work if you're assuming Randle and Brunson are staying, and OG is staying. And likelihood is Hart and DiVincenzo would stay because I don't see either of them necessarily going. So you basically need Mitchell Robinson's salary. And again, maybe they could change their minds, but you'd need Mitchell Robinson's salary and another salary to go out, but you wouldn't have that money necessarily. So that was, I had put together earlier the thought of, I hate the fit with DeJounte Murray, but if you were to say, hey, this summer we'll offer DeJounte Murray and Mitchell Robinson for Joel Embiid, or DeJounte Murray this summer for Donovan Mitchell, when things are a little bit more settled and you get to that point, it's a different story. There just aren't a lot of players who can be lead ball handlers and work contractually with what the Knicks like to get them what they want this summer. How do you foresee a potential DeJounte Murray into the fold in the short term to try to flip him in the summer?
Yeah, that's interesting. That's not, well, I hadn't thought about it that way. I mean, as like a basketball fit, I don't love it. And I think you mentioned all the reasons why, but like as kind of a step on the ladder, another rung to get to where you want to. I mean, if they have all that in the cards, or that's the idea, like it would just it would be very hard to swallow the deal, not knowing if they know that that's going to take place. Also, the way this kind of consolidated things a little bit, like you feel kind of good now about the timeline and like where the contracts are. Again, especially if you get OG on that discount. And like, I don't know, like, do you want to now disrupt this again? Like the roster makes a lot of sense now. And I assume that starting lineup of Brunson, I assume he keeps DiVincenzo there. Brunson, DiVincenzo, Anunoby, Randle, and Hartenstein for the foreseeable future until Mitch, if and when Mitch comes back. I really like that starting lineup.
Agreed.
I really like that starting lineup.
It's the thought process of how do we get from where we are at to the next step while also retaining our depth. And that's going to be hard to do because if you don't get someone to fill that Fournier money, if you don't continue to soup him, then you're going to struggle to find the math to make it work and still feel like you're a deep team that's also a contender. So that's where I'm operating from, where I don't like the fit. I don't like the catch and shoot ability. But let's say it weren't DeJounte Murray and Malachi Flynn really hasn't done very much. Deuce McBride's mostly played off ball in his career. You hope Jalen Brunson stays healthy. Where do you go from here if you're the Knicks and you need that other ball handler in season? Because it was IQ and now it's obviously not.
Yeah. That's, I mean, is there anyone in the Fournier range that you could attach some seconds to get the help you need there? Like, I don't know. the name that came to mind, not that he'd necessarily be available. I don't know when he's available to be traded because he just got signs like a Tyus Jones or like kind of like your average, your good backup to just fill those, what now I think would be Malachi Flynn minutes, which scares me. Or do you just didn't trust like DiVincenzo / Hart to run the point for you without, and now you don't even have Barrett to assist in that playmaking on the second unit. You probably have to now stagger Brunson and Randall more than you did before. So that'll change the rotation in a significant way. It's a great point, Jeremy. I don't know. And you're thinking about it, I think, in a classic Jeremy way that I wouldn't have even considered. I wonder if there's a stopgap that's not Malachi Flynn, if they even give Flynn a shot. I don't know. Or if they give Deuce a shot and see how that goes. To me, at least in terms of the current roster, the answer in terms of ball handling is probably to really run through Randall if you stagger and basically make him your point guard, but obviously playing differently than a point guard. And then trust Josh Hart, DiVincenzo a little bit. They both have some ball handling chops, but it's going to be an interesting challenge. I have to go Bert my baby.
You're good.
So,
We're done. We're done. I'm glad you came on to
thanks for
react
having
that
me, guys.
way,
Sorry, it's a whirlwind. My thoughts probably aren't very clear, but this has been a wild sign-on. This has been the wildest sign-on I've had. So thanks for entertaining me. Thanks for filling me in. Hope I shed a little bit of light on anything. But anyway,
100%.
enjoy the rest of the show.
Thanks, sir.
which is
Peace,
hopefully
fellas.
not much longer. Thank you, Benji. And with that, Jeremy, thus concludes our marathon reaction emergency live stream reacting to the Knicks trading the biggest trade they've made since trading Kristaps Porzingis. It's that simple. And I think the only one close to it, as John mentioned, the only one close to it before that is trading for Carmelo Anthony. And the other one bigger than that before this is trading away Patrick Ewing. So we shall see how this thing ages. My thanks to everybody that tuned in. Please like this video, subscribe to our channel. If you're listening later, give us a 5-star rating and a review. It really helps us out. Jeremy, any final thoughts before we go get ready for a basketball game?
No, just thank you everyone for participating. I know John had to dip, unfortunately, but appreciate the time that he was here. Thank you, Andrew, for setting this up. This was a huge day. One that I was expecting to have not doing anything, and turned into one that was my whole day, all encompassing, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And I really look forward to how this team is going to go, and I'm really excited about the future. And again, I feel one step closer to the end goal of really getting a true talent in New York and elevating this team. And I'm excited. I'm really excited, and I hope you are too, if you're out there. So, just thank you as always for the. It's an honor and a privilege, so I appreciate it.
Thank you to Jeremy for sharing your genius brain with the rest of all of us. If you just tuned in at the very end, please go check out the analysis and the just flat out brilliant breakdown that he did about the 1 hour mark is where around then is when it started, and what the Knicks may potentially do next. A live cap or no cap is what he most likely did. And then shout out to John, shout out to Benji for joining us. And I just want to extend this is John left early to go be with his family to do a Christmas dinner. I want to just extend a shout out to my wife, who we had a day planned together that also got derailed by all of this. We are nothing without the people that support us, our families in particular. And I'm just very thankful that she's understanding in moments like this, that because if she wasn't, I would not be here. When duty calls, we have to do this. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Tune in for the post game tonight. We'll see what kind of mood that is, if it's just an extension of this. But until next time, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and we will speak with you soon. Peace.